Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to roll right in. Okay, let's see here. And we're recording. Okay, are folks seeing what I'm sharing here? Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Elevate and IIDA Student Symposium. We are super thrilled you're here. And I think by the end of this half of day that we're going to all spend together on Zoom, you will be so glad that you woke up early and that you spent some of your Saturday with us for this wonderful event, really focused on interior design for students and connecting you to the industry and great professionals. So this is just a little snapshot of who we are on the planning committee for this event. I am Peter Harrison. I'm the VP of Student Affairs for the IIDA Oregon chapter. And then Sandra and Eve are both directors on our team. Wave, yep, there's Sandra and Eve. So they'll be part of some of the sessions and also moderating. And so they're great people to ping when you have questions or just need help or anything throughout the event. Myself, even Sandra, will be kind of your go-to. And then we also have some student representatives from schools here in Oregon. So Abigail Strong is our student liaison to the board from George Fox University. And then we also have Bailey Ash from University of Oregon, as well as we'll be getting a new student from the university or Oregon State University. So really great to have them as part of our planning committee for this event. So I want to just really first start with acknowledging and thanking some wonderful sponsors. So these are companies and organizations who are really invested and committed to IIDA and to IIDA students. And so they allow us to do things like sending you lunch gift cards and, you know, some of the raffle prizes and wonderful things that we are so excited to be having as part of this event. And so Pacific WRO, Sandra on our team is with Pacific. And so, and then we also have our lunch sponsors, and they are Gensler, Northwest Office Interiors, Miller Knoll, and then Pacific WRO. And so these are really great companies. I encourage all of the students to look into them. They have really great product. They offer really good design services, and they're really just a good way to build your resource knowledge as you're a student and start to build those relationships with the folks in those companies as you become a professional, because it's really critical as you start working on projects that you have those good relationships. So we're going to keep jumping in. So the agenda for the schedule today is we're just starting off with a little bit of a welcome to everyone. We're going to jump right into a resume writing session with Laura, and she's going to go really into some great depth about resume writing. Then at 8:55, we'll have a brief 5-minute break, so a chance to grab another drink, use the bathroom. From 9 to 10, we'll have a career pathway panel and discussion with 4 different emerging professionals who have very different career paths and education backgrounds. And then we'll have another little 10-minute break. And then from 10:10 to 10:50, we will do a career pathway session with some firm leaders. So this will be a great chance to have a discussion and hear from folks that are at that leadership level at organizations and firms in the architecture and design industry. We'll take another quick break, and then we'll come back for our last session, which is portfolios, a panel and review. And so part of that will be a panel discussion between our reviewers about do's and don'ts, things they see in portfolios and advice for you. And then we will break out into individual sessions for the students who have selected to have their portfolio review, and then students who will just want to listen in and participate. And then we'll be done. And if folks want to stay on for a little bit, you all should be getting some lunch gift cards sent to your email that you registered with in the next little bit. And so you can order your food if you want today or save that. But if folks want to stay on for a little bit, we can chit chat and just kind of wrap up. And we'll be doing a raffle at the end too for some awesome prizes, which is what I'm going to talk about next. So we have 2 IIDA student memberships that we're going to be raffling off. So these will be 2 student memberships for the year 2022. We're going to be raffling off an hour with Pacific WRO to meet their team, kind of understand their design process. And then we'll also be raffling off an hour with Skylab Architecture, which is an architecture and interior studio here in Portland. And then we will also be raffling off an Eames Hang It All. These are really beautiful pieces. I wanted one of these, so I'm super jealous that one of you will get one of these awesome really beautiful Eames hang it all. And then the last one is an hour with Miller Knoll. And so you're going to get a really great insight into the side of the industry with furniture and the manufacturing and the dealership side and the sales side of things. So that's a really great opportunity as well. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to Laura and let her introduce herself, and I will stop screen sharing. And again, just welcome to everyone and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Peter. And good morning, everyone. Let me just share my screen here. I've got a little presentation to show everyone. And what we're going to be talking about today for the first half hour is resume building. Like Peter said, my name is Laura Serecin. I'm a nationally certified commercial interior designer, and I work in Portland at Ankrom, Moisan. I've been doing this for about 25 years in 4 cities. So I've had to reinvent my resume at least 4 times within the span of my career. So for the purpose today, we're going to understand the components of a great resume. I'm going to show you some ways to tackle that blank page and really start crafting some statements that are going to make resume reviewers take notice of you and provide some tips and tricks for best practices when you're writing your resume. Can everyone see my screen? Okay. I will take that as a yes. Okay, great. So first of all, some components of a standout resume are going to be your contact info, a listing of your professional skills, a list of your experience, your education, any activities and affiliations you might have, and some type of a list of your computer skills and proficiencies. So resumes really need to be succinct. They don't have to say everything. Sometimes people think that the more you write, the more you're going to get noticed and be a better fit for the position. But actually, a resume is more to make the reviewer intrigued, to ask some questions and really want to get to know more about you. And sometimes people might have heard about objective statements for a resume. And a lot of times, you know, our objective of applying for a job is to get a job. So that's kind of our objective. If you don't really, you know, have anything compelling to say in an objective statement, I think that's something that you can keep off and just stick to these major components for a resume. So this is my resume. I update my resume every year. I spend the time in between Christmas and New Year's updating my resume, updating my portfolio, making sure everything is current and fresh. And as you can tell, it's you know, kind of plain. I just meant it to be really crisp and concise and professional. I wanted to appear sharp, and I wanted to make people think that if I took the time to, you know, write things out on this sheet of paper, it's something that somebody should be reading and that it's really important. So my skills are listed in this manner. I'll just read one thing off of here. Keenly aware of alternative nonlinear forms of input via intuitive empathy, recognizes unique sources of inspiration and motivation. So that kind of says a lot in a very little amount of time. And I'm going to share some methods here so that you can turn your experiences into really powerful statements like that. So my resume does contain all of those components that I just showed you. And this is how a reviewer is going to screen for them. So first and foremost, they're going to look for your contact information. And, you know, name, phone, email is completely enough. You don't need to have addresses and web addresses and anything like that. Next, they're going to look at your experience. They're going to say, are you employed currently? Have you had some work experience related to the field? Are there any like gaps in your work experience and how you're dealing with those? Next, they're going to want to know where you went to school. If you're certified, if you have any type of special details about the specific college that you went to. Next, they're going to look at these marketable skills. And sometimes you'll see resumes broken out at, I worked at XYZ company and I learned these skills. I worked at ABC company and I learned these types of skills. That's a totally fine way to break out your experiences. This was just my personal preference to kind of categorize things and make them really easy for whomever's reviewing them to just kind of see these bullet points and learn and think a little bit more. And then next, they're going to look at any professional development courses that you've taken, any affiliations, any special things that you might want to mention, any kudos that you have for yourself. So I've got a lot of my IIDA experience here and some courses and volunteer opportunities that I worked with. And then lastly, they're going to ask, or they're going to wonder about your computer skills and your proficiencies. So that's kind of my resume. And these are the ways that the points that we're going to talk about in a little bit more depth here today about how to get to that great resume. We're going to talk about the worksheets so that prior to having this presentation, Eve and Sandra and Peter were going to send everyone a set of worksheets that I put together. And you don't have to have them done for today. We're not going to get into detail about them, but I'm going to show you how to work those worksheets and really use those to craft those marketable skills statements. We're going to talk about action words and saying it with numbers. We're going to talk about length and content, a little bit about graphic templates, and just some tips and tricks about exactly what should be included on a resume. So first of all, we're going to talk about those worksheets that I sent to you. So some of the lines on the worksheets do just kind of ask you names and places and times and cities and states and all of that. And that's really just to kind of get all of the information on one page so that you have it when you're writing things all together, and you can have that all in one place. And then there are other mini session questions or mini essay questions that are on those worksheets that are really going to require some thinking and writing. Put in the time to write out these questions. I know it's kind of a bummer and you have to think and you really have to kind of go back into your mind and think critically about those positions you were at. But believe me, it's really going to make a difference for those marketable skills that you're going to put on your resume. When you're writing things down on the worksheets, don't get caught up in writing like those beautifully eloquent sentences. Just kind of write stream of consciousness, get words on the paper, get thoughts down, and then you can come back and edit when you have a little bit more time. If you're kind of coming up with a block and you can't really think of anything creative to write about a certain job you had or experience you had, ask for help. Talk to somebody that you work with. Maybe ask them some questions about their experiences, and that might help spark a little bit of some interest for you or allow you to write some things down on the page that would be helpful. And then lastly, for those worksheets, do a little daydreaming. Think about what you really want to be doing. What's your dream job? Think about what the description of that dream job is. And think about how you might have experienced it currently. Start writing a little bit about that on your worksheets too. So I'm just going to briefly go through those worksheets that were sent out. The first one here is your education worksheet. Again, just listing out some names and dates. And then any relevant or interesting coursework. If you're taking a liberal arts education and you might have had like an astronomy class that really made you think outside the box, list that and list what effect it had on you. List any certificates or any conferences and seminars, any type of professional development activities, or an IIDA event that you really love that affected you in some way. go ahead and write that down and just write a little blurb about why it was interesting and important to you. Excuse me. The next one is a life work experience worksheet. You're going to want to print this out or do this digitally for each job you've had, each life experience that was, that provided some type of marketable skill for you. So do this for everyone. Names and dates at the top here. And then think about your company, the company that you work for. Was it like a nation's leading blah, blah, blah? Did it have the top 10 market introductions in 2020, something like that? Are there any distinguishing characteristics about that company? Write that down, and maybe we can use that in your marketable skills points. List out your job responsibilities and any accolades you might have received. If you got a promotion, if you were asked to be a part of like a special committee, if you had were employee of the month or anything like that. List those down too. And then think a little bit about contributions and impact statements. What was the effect that you had on the company? Did you make them more profitable? Did they operate more efficiently? Did you solve any specific problems with them? Or did you set any professional goals for yourself while working them? Excuse me, and did you achieve them? And how did you achieve them? All really great information that you're not going to want to miss to put on your resume. And then the last, oh, am I going over? How am I doing on time? Okay, good. Okay.
No, I was just going to say, Laura, we just started, so we'll take maybe a minute break at like 8:59, but feel free to just take the next 10 minutes or so. So we're not,
okay,
because we might have a couple of questions too at the end. So
okay, I've got 4 more slides, so we'll get through these real quick. The last one is professional development the worksheet. You're going to want to list out your computer skills, any professional organizations that you've been involved with, any community involvement or service activities, any awards, publications that you've been in or a part of, and any social media presence that you've got. Double check them for professional appropriateness, but these are things that you can also include. So this page here shows the progression of how you can really elevate your job description, your response, or your marketable skills. So the first one is something you might write down on one of your worksheets, or very easy to write. Monitored company social media pages and posted new product information. That's awesome, great. But is there a way to elevate that statement and say a little bit more with just a couple more words? So what you're going to do is Google a list of action words. These are action verbs that tell a story and will make any resume reviewer raise their eyebrows a little bit and want to learn more. They convey confidence. So use an action word at the beginning of each of your marketable skills bullet points. So that first statement can morph into studied trending topics and hashtags on social media and publish brand relevant information across companies' digital platforms. So you can already see how things are starting to get a little bit more interesting, and let's say a little bit more. And then you can start quantifying your experiences. You want to start using numbers to describe your successes. This shows scale and helps the resume reviewer see the impact you make in a professional position. For example, setting trending topics and hashtags on social media and publish brand relevant information across companies' digital platforms, resulting in a 35% increase in audience engagement. So that's going to, really make somebody see the effect of what you working at this company did for them. So you can start thinking about square footage sizes of your projects, the number of projects that you've completed, the number of social media posts you created, or the percentage growth that you contributed to with the company. So it's just some final helpful hints here. Again, say it with numbers. Start thinking about how you can add in those numbers to start quantifying your experience and the effect that you have on a company. Keep it to one page. Resume reviewers are looking through pages and pages when they're, trying to call applicants for a job. And if you've got, more than one page and, you have maybe 5 years of experience, that really says that you really need to edit yourself. So we really do need to keep resumes to one page. It's really going to, speak frankly, and it shows that you're able to self-edit. Also, you want to proofread. I think, texting, online commenting, emojis have lessened kind of the formality that we speak in. However, that doesn't apply to your resume. Your resume needs to be formal. It needs to be complete. It needs to be using proper grammar, proper spelling, punctuation. So if that's not your best suit, ask someone else to just review and edit to proofread your resume. And finally, find a clean graphic template for your resume. Pinterest is a great source to find some graphic examples of resumes and see how you can recreate them for your resume. Also, too, don't fib. Sometimes people say, oh, I can, maybe just, pad my resume a little bit. By all means, creatively express your skills and your qualifications. Think about them in broader terms, but it's all fun and games until you say, a computer program, and on the first day they ask you to use it, and you're kind of needing to do a masterclass really soon. And finally, keep it simple. Your resume really isn't the place for your headshot or charts or clip art. You can add a little bit of color and little simple graphic elements to help. We're all visual thinkers, for sure. But add these elements, wisely and judiciously. And that is it. Good luck on your job search. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, we'll take maybe about 5 or so minutes if we've got some questions. So if students feel comfortable, unmute yourselves and ask on camera, or you can drop it into the chat, and Sandra, even I can help moderate that. But yeah, this is your chance to ask some great questions about what Laura shared on the content of resumes. Okay, I see 2 hands. So we'll start with Isabella. I think you were first, yes. And then we'll go to Cindy.
Okay, hi, Peter, hi, Laura. So first of all, thanks for this. This is awesome. This is my first meeting. But my question for you, Laura, is on the professional experience. So I own several of my own businesses. And so instead of, it's kind of hard sometimes, I think, to write about that. So I guess, is there any tips that you would have for me, because I kind of did everything,
Yeah, that's great. I would first maybe just start breaking it down with, you've got 3 businesses, and then kind of the job duties that you performed on each one. And then maybe, the positions that you held in each one. And you can think about it kind of more objectively, because yes, you did it all, but you need to kind of break it down into those manageable kind of portions and really write out those responsibilities, and start putting some skill sets to each one that are going to be marketable for this next position.
Do we need, because I'm no spring chicken, I'm 50, so
good for you. Yeah, that's awesome.
Does that mean I'm assuming I don't need to go back in time very far. It should be, unless it's somehow relevant. Mm-hmm. So if I had serving jobs or bartending gigs, way back when I was in college, I probably don't need to list that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, or when I was young, let's say I'm in college again, but for my the businesses I've owned, if they're just list like the pertinent things that apply to this next career? Because it was a little bit of a career shift, right? So, or do you think I should just kind of not necessarily gear it towards interior design, just kind of just the basic skill sets that I have?
Well, if you think that the position in the past and another job, even if it was at a different in a different industry, if it gave you skills that you're going to use in this position, definitely include it. A lot of times resumes are going to be in that reverse chronological fashion when you're listing your experience. So it's your most current job, the one before that, the one before that. I think I have 3 or 4 on my resume. That takes me through, 25 years, but probably 3-ish, 4-ish is probably the most you want to list, the most that are going to fit on a page.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good starting point.
And did you list, is it appropriate to list hobbies or interests outside of your career? Or is that really not?
Yes. Down in that last section where you kind of list your proficiencies, I did have a little line on mine that had some things that I was interested in. I just took it off because it didn't fit. So that kind of got, cut at the end. But that's totally fine. I think that helps resume reviewers to kind of know a little bit more about your personality. So that's always fun.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go to Cindy.
Hi, you mentioned something about like gaps in employment, and I wanted to know what advice you had for people who have been homemakers for a long period of time and then went back to school and are rejoining the workforce.
That's a great question. I would definitely mention that. I think that, the skills being a mom and a parent are that involves multitasking and all of these things. So if there is a gap in your career due to having children, that's something that you can talk about. I think that if you've got one job for 2 years and then a gap of 10 years and then another job, go ahead and list those with that gap. And then domestic CEO, I like that. You could, in your marketable skills, kind of call those out and say, is there a separate section about, being a mom that you want to kind of list those skills? And that might help people kind of understand where those gaps are or why those gaps are on the resume.
Like I've done like freelance work in that period of time. So put that on there. But also like another question, and I don't know if this particularly applies to resumes, but like, how do you deal with like people who ask for references when you haven't been in touch with people for such a long period of time, or like one company I work for doesn't exist anymore, and people have retired and that sort of thing.
This is why keeping your resume current and up to date on a regular basis is so important. So at that time, like I said, between Christmas and New Year's, I work on my resume, work on my portfolio. If there are references, I just touch base with them, make sure their contact information is up to date. Usually, employers may ask for a reference early on in your career. The farther along you get in your career and more established you become in a city, the less likely that they're going to be asking for letters of reference. But just take that time on a regular basis to make sure all of those things are current. Just send them, a holiday card so that they know you're still around.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, so we are just about at time, Charity. If it's a rapid fire question, let's go for it. And then we'll just roll right in and maybe take a 1-minute break so we don't get behind. Go for it.
Yes, I'll make this quick. How do you go about listing skills or programs that you're familiar with, but you wouldn't quite say you're proficient in yet? Or would you even list those?
Yeah, so some things that I've seen on some resumes is they do like a little graphic bar. So like if you're super proficient in Revit, you give that like 4 stars. And if you kind of know AutoCAD, you give that a 1 star. So it kind of graphically represents your how proficient you are in certain programs.
Great question. Well, I wish we had more time because this is such a great topic. Laura, if you wouldn't mind maybe putting your email in the chat, is that okay? If folks have additional follow-up questions, they can reach out to you. And we'll probably have, other time during the sessions to ask questions related to this. The portfolio session, I think, is a great kind of adjacent session where resumes might come up again. So thank you all for being part of the session. So that we do not get super far behind, we're going to just shorten our 5-minute break to a 1-minute break. So everyone maybe just stand up, stretch, grab that coffee, maybe run to the bathroom. But we're going to just give about a 1 to 2 minute break, and we'll jump right into the emerging professional session about 9:04, 9:05. So just take maybe a minute or two, and we'll join back here for our next great session. So thank you all. And thanks, Laura. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Good luck, everyone.
I'm just going to use this minute or two while we're in a break. I see we've got Candice on our next session presenting. I think I saw Natalie. Toshi's here. I don't know if Jessy, are you on? You were, okay, I see you on. So let me know if you all can hear me. We're just in a couple-minute break. We're running a tiny bit behind, but that's okay. We'll have plenty of time in this next session. And I will drop in the chat, the order that I have the presentation decks in, or I'll just share it now and just make sure that's okay. So I have you going first, Candice. Are you okay with that?
That works.
Okay, great. So Candice, you'll be going first, and then I have Jessy, you'll be second. Is that okay? I'm not getting a verbal response from her, but she might be joining via audio. And then I have Natalie, I think you're third, and then Toshi, you'll be fourth. So if that all sounds good, we'll do that order for when we start the event. So yeah, we're just having a couple-minute break here. Students are grabbing beverages, getting cozy, settling in. Hey, Jessy, I see you on video. I just want to make sure you can hear me. You're all good?
I can hear you guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Okay, great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for your patience. So sorry about that.
Yes. No, it's good. We're just, we're about to start here in the next minute. So you're all great. I think we've got everyone else. Looks like I've seen more cameras on. People are settling in. We'll just give it another minute and we'll start right at 9:05. I will share my screen just to kind of kick off the session, and then we'll turn it over to some great panelists and let them take it away. And I put it in the chat earlier, but too, as students and folks are joining, just feel free to add your school if you'd like to your name, so you can connect with potentially students from other schools and programs, and then also just connect to other students from your own school that might be here. We've got, since this is virtual, we've got a great kind of cross section of students in Oregon, as well as Washington, California, and Utah. So if I'm missing another state, please let me know. We cast this really broad, so we really appreciate everyone being here this morning. It's 9:05, so we're going to just keep rolling into it. And for this session, I actually am going to turn it over to Eve, who is going to be our moderator for this session and kick us off. So I will let you go, Eve, and I can just share my screen for the title. I'll do the presentation deck. So
Awesome.
Take it away, Eve.
Well, yes, welcome everyone to our next panel session. This will be on emerging professionals and getting started in the industry. We have 4 awesome people joining us. Wave when I say your name, and they will also be introducing themselves a little bit more in depth before we jump into some questions. So we have Jessy, who turned designer to business owner, Candice, who is a designer with Hyphn, Toshi, who is a designer at Pratt and Larson, and then Natalie, who is back to school and is a grad student right now at Boston Architectural College. So you'll be hearing from all of them, and then there'll be an opportunity to ask questions and pick their brains. And I think we have some slides for each person, so they'll kind of walk us through the deck.
Yep, that sounds good. So we're going to start off with Candice. So I am going to let Candice introduce herself, and we'll get started. And just so folks know, we'll have all 4 kind of present their decks, and they'll be pretty brief, and then we'll have lots of time for discussion and questions. So we'll ask that you just hold your questions till the end, and you can drop them in the chat though if something comes to mind, but we'll kind of do all the question and answer at the end of the session.
Hi everyone. As Peter and Eve said, my name's Candice. I am an interior designer with a Steelcase dealership in town here in Portland, called Hyphn. I am also director of news with the IIDA Oregon chapter. And I also just want to say welcome to everyone. I think you are doing yourself a great service to be a part of this event. I wish I had had an event like this while I was in college. It's such a great opportunity to meet other industry professionals and revisit and revamp your resume and portfolio. Just a wonderful opportunity. So thank you, IIDA, for putting this together. We'll put the next slide here. Thank you. So even though I've been in Portland since 2018, I was actually born and raised in Boulder, Colorado. It was a job opportunity that actually brought me out to Portland. So just right off the bat, know that you don't necessarily need to stay in the town that you're in or where you went to college. You can always branch out. There are opportunities across the nation in design. I find that Portland especially is definitely a really design-driven city. There are so many architecture and design firms and just a lot of opportunity. So when I'm not working, I'm definitely taking advantage of the Oregon outdoors, lots of skiing and hiking and some awesome breweries and wineries. So I try to get out as much as I can. And then when I'm inside binging a lot of streaming shows, I could talk at length about the ones I've been watching recently. So yeah, definitely fill the free time with that. Okay, so starting with a look at my education history, I went to Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. They have an interior design program there that is CETA accredited. Recently, after I graduated, they changed the program name to Interior Architecture and Design. And this is a big deal, especially for me. I just feel that sometimes it's hard to advocate for ourselves as interior designers. We're met with the misconception that interior design is, relegated to what you see on HGTV. Like that is kind of the only exposure there. That is a consistent response that I get. And I think it's more, a sign of what there's left to do for us to educate the public about what interior design looks like. And small plug for the advocacy efforts that IIDA is doing. They're working with public political officials to make interior design a profession that's taken more seriously. So again, that was maybe something that seems small to rename the program that, but ultimately it's a big deal and being taken seriously in our profession. In that program, there were 40 students in my class, and we still remain very close. I think if you have the opportunity to make close relationships with your classmates, that will carry you into the professionals world as well. We have all helped each other find jobs. We've all, let each other know when there are opportunities available. And that's just such a valuable networking opportunity. So just wonderful experience being able to make long-lasting relationships with those classmates. Moving into my second year, I participated in a lot of student chapters. IIDA was one of them, but also ASID and SHN. I was trying to get as involved as possible, and that really lent to my experience with networking and event planning, and it was definitely a really valuable feature of my time in college. I also spent 1 year as a first-year peer mentor. So I was mentoring freshmen coming into the interior design program, also a very valuable experience. My junior year, I decided to study abroad in Copenhagen, Denmark. Really loved that journey. The program in Copenhagen was wonderful. I studied with incredible professors and really got a lens to the architecture and design in Denmark. After that, I spent 1 semester completing an internship with a Denver firm that specialized in high-end residential design. And then in my senior year, I spent a semester as a teaching assistant for an AutoCAD course. If you have an opportunity to teach a course that you learned yourself, I think it's very valuable skill that you can carry into the professional world. Just having that lens as a teacher to, coach students through that program, also very valuable. And then for my capstone project, I did a dementia care facility. And this was based in kind of my passion for serving individuals in a fulfilling way. I'm super passionate about the psychology of interior design. And so I carried that passion into the capstone project that I did, and ultimately ended my 4 years with a Bachelor of Science in Interior Design and a Business Administration minor. So now I'm entering the professional world at this point. I was offered an opportunity with the firm that I interned with to bring me on as a full-time position. At that firm, I also obtained my LEED Green Associates exam. That was an incredible experience obtaining that, studying and getting that certification. I unfortunately haven't had the opportunity to implement it as much, and that's something I kind of regret. I wish I had taken the opportunity to pursue continuing education credits so that I could keep my certification, because it does expire if you don't pursue those CEUs. And so take a lesson from me, when you do get these certifications, it's so important to keep up on that knowledge. I wish I still had it. I'll have to go back and pursue it again. I think it was a very valuable certification to have. So after my time with that firm, I actually reconnected with one of my classmates, and her company was hiring for a technical designer with a KI furniture dealership in Denver. So KI Furniture, they specialize in K-12 furniture, super durable pieces. So while I was there, that was kind of my first entry to the furniture dealership world. So there was a huge learning curve, but it was a lens to a whole different world outside of design firms. I think when I left school, they often push the envelope that the design firm is kind of the only route you'll go. I think there's kind of this expectation that that's the end result, not knowing that there were other opportunities outside of design firms. So that led me to the opportunity out here in Oregon. So that dealership specialized in Knoll furniture. And I was with them for a period of time before COVID hit. And a lot of companies here took it pretty hard. I was part of a group of 75% of staff that were laid off. So I was part of the unemployment group of people. And that was a very difficult time for me because I'm just incredibly passionate about my work. So I was very restless, very eager to find another position. And so what I ended up doing was reaching out to another furniture dealership in Portland called Hyphn. And there was no job posting. There was no call for hiring. I just knew that I liked this company. I liked what they stood for. I knew I wanted the opportunity to be a part of their team. So even though there was an opportunity at the time, we had a discussion, and about 6 months later, an opportunity did become available, and they remembered me and reached out. And so I want to take that moment to speak to, I think you can do a lot to create the kind of job you want to kind of manifest, the kind of position, the kind of company that you want to be with, and advocate for yourself that you would be a good fit for that company. It doesn't necessarily need to be a job opening. And, I know that was a rare instance. It's not, something that's common, but it's definitely something to consider. I'm seeing a question come through. Thanks, Peter. So we'll move on to the next slide. I'm seeing the question, how do I like working at a furniture dealer? This is actually a perfect transition. So here are some of the tasks that I have from day-to-day responsibilities with a furniture dealership. You can see my computer programs. Even though I learned a lot in school, there's one primary computer program that I use. So it's important to, figure out which computer programs you'd like to use in practice, because the kind of job that you take will also determine what software you're using. We can move on to the next slide. Just some quick lessons learned from my education and professional careers. I think networking is super important. Like I said, my classmates, we all rely on each other, to hear about job opportunities and help each other out. I would branch out. I lived most of my life in Colorado, but now I'm in Oregon and I call it home. And so I think you can, definitely explore other parts of the US. Brand yourself around the type of designer that you do want to be. I think from, the previous session, always updating your resume and expressing the type of design that you're interested in is super important. And then I would figure out what you value. My capstone was based on what was important to me, which was, taking care of individuals, like in a healthcare setting. And even right now with the furniture dealership, I work in the K-12 market. So I'm serving students that need furniture to create environments where they can learn and thrive. And I'm passionate about that. So I'm able to combine my career skills with my passion and really make it a fulfilling job. So next slide. And that wraps it up. I can go into more detail, certainly about what I do with Hyphn. I would love to talk to you about that. So feel free to email me, reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you'd like to check out our company website, I included the website link there as well.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Candice. Really appreciate your perspective. We're going to keep moving on so that we can get through all the great presenters that we have. So I next want to introduce Jessy and turn it over to you to talk about your career path and your journey and advice you have for students.
Sure thing. Well, thank you for having me. So I'm Jessy Miguel. I'm a designer and now a business owner as well. So we can move forward to the next slide. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Oregon. I'm one of the few Portland natives that is still around, so count me in there. Some of my passion and interests outside of interior design is graphic design, traveling, fine art, and architecture as well. I definitely, going into college, I have those classes that really stood out to me and influence who I am as an individual today. And those would be my commercial design class, my portfolio, my business and entrepreneurship classes, graphic design, and industrial design as well. We can move forward, Peter. One before.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, let's see. Oops, go back. Okay, there we go. Ah, it's playing tricks on me. This one, right?
Yes, that one.
Okay.
All right, so I started as a student at the Art Institute of Portland from 2014 to 2017. I was highly involved with IIDA. I was a student liaison for the Art Institute. I participated in all of the design charrettes as much as possible. Thankfully, I was member of the first place team for the Oregon Student Chapter, and then that took me to the IIDA Western Regional Student competition, and then I also participated in the international one out in Chicago. So I highly recommend you continue to stay involved with IIDA. It's a great platform. It's a great opportunity for networking. So moving on, I also completed an internship during my time at the Art Institute that I actually found the job posting on IIDA Oregon chapter website. So again, everything links back to IIDA. So I found my internship there at Rose City Office Furnishings. It's a small local furniture dealership. So again, tying it back to Candice's experiences as well, furniture dealerships are a great opportunity. So during my time there, I organized materials library. I assisted our senior designer on the large scale projects. And I also took ownership of the smaller scale projects like the small private offices or small conference rooms or small lounge areas. But I was able to take a little bit of ownership at such a young part of my career. After I finished my internship hours there, I was actually offered a part-time position with them. And so I took it. I was like, okay, perfect timing. I am a student. I want the experience. So I took it. And then fast forward, I graduated in 2017 and I continued my time with Rose City Office Furnishings for another year as a full-time interior designer. Once I was there, my responsibilities grew much more. So I provided more furniture space planning for all project types from small to large. I started developing the furniture specifications. I would do a lot of client interface and conduct site observations and measurements as well. I prepared the 2D and the 3D drawings, and it was just a great experience for me. Fast forward as well, I continued my journey to Henneberry Architects, and I was there for a total of 3 years. And again, the way I landed this opportunity at HEA links back to IIDA. So I did the IIDA job shadowing back when I was a student, and that's how I met a designer at Henneberry Architects. So again, just like Candice's story, they weren't hiring at the moment. I just reached out to my connection at Henneberry Architects, and I was like, I know you're not hiring, but I would love to work for you guys. So I landed a job at Henneberry, and during my time there, I became a lead green associate as well. I continue to manage the materials library, coordinate rep presentations, and I completed a good amount of projects in aviation, commercial, public and civic, and higher education. The picture shown there is PDX Airport, which was one of my biggest projects, I would say. And then that led me to leaving Henneberry back in October of 2021 and fully focusing myself to Matisse, my current job now as a business owner.
Sorry, it's jumping around here. I think we're on the right one now, right?
I still don't see anything.
Oh, are you seeing the
but
present?
It could just be lagging. I see your presentation, but I don't see the slide.
Okay.
I see the slide. The present.
Do you?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can go back and then. Okay. Is it showing up on your end now, Jessy?
It's not, but don't worry about it. So I'm currently the business owner for Matisse. Matisse focuses on wool rugs that are made in Oaxaca, Mexico. I wanted to construct a business that really just meshed all of my interests and passions together, Mexico being one, because that's where my roots are from, and design and product design and color and materiality and textiles. So that is where Matisse was born. So I conceptualize and I develop all the rug designs for my current collection. I virtually meet with my team, but I also travel quite often to be with my team and to start conceptualizing and get more knowledge about my products as well. I manage all the marketing material, all the social media accounts for Matisse as well, all the finances, the client interface. I also have been collaborating with a lot of other designers, product designers to, I don't want to share too much, but just develop other products. And I have recently also been in a lot of pop-up markets. So Portland Night Market being one tonight, if you want to join in. But yeah, being a business owner has really helped me just develop new skills outside of the interior design world that I was exposed to for so long. But it's been a great experience that I wouldn't exchange for anything. We can move on, Peter.
So we're on the lessons learned slide now. Are you seeing that on your end?
I don't see it.
Okay.
It could just be me though. It could just be me flagging.
Are
here.
other folks seeing, are they seeing lessons learned?
I see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see it.
Okay.
Do you want me to, do you need a second to pull it up on your end, or I don't want you to have to fly blind too long.
Sorry, guys. Okay, lessons learned. So as a student, I would highly recommend that you take classes outside of the interior design major, whether it's business, whether it's fashion, whether it's fine art or graphics, whatever it may be. Just always stay curious, always stay involved, always stay wanting to learn more. Another lesson, stay involved as much as you can, whether it's design clubs or IIDA or ASID, whatever it may be. But any way you can grasp more information to be a successful designer, do it. Attend professional networking events and don't be afraid to say hi. As designers, we want to get to know other young designers and connect with them and, you know, really resonate with them and share our experiences. So don't be afraid to say hello. Always ask for a business card. As soon as you shake that hand and say your goodbye, ask for a business card, connect with them, send a follow-up email, say your thank yous, connect via LinkedIn if possible. And they are possibly also your connections to internships or job shadows. So that's another lesson learned. Connect with a designer or a rep. at a design firm, small and big design firms, at a furniture dealership, and with a product designer if possible. And seek a design mentor as well, a mentor that you can trust, a mentor that you can go to for questions or doubts during your career. Again, this design mentor could be a potential connection to a job interview as well. And the lessons learned that I have learned as a professional is to find a true work and life balance, to learn to set limits and boundaries at work. It's also okay to ask for help. There's always an expert at the firm. I always felt like I couldn't ask for help when it came to Revit, but I quickly learned that there's always those Revit gurus that are willing to help out. So do it. Sometimes you just need to say no. When it becomes a little too much to handle, you have to just defend yourself and say, no, I cannot take any more. Also, appreciate your small wins and victories, whether it's completing your first drawing set, crushing your first client meeting, learning a new tool or command in Revit. Always learn to just take a moment and appreciate and celebrate your win. Be clear and persistent on your career goals and needs from the very beginning, from your job interview that states who you are as a designer and what the firm can do as you further your career. Don't wait for an annual review if you want constructive feedback. If you want it right away, ask for it. Anyone is willing to give it to you. Enjoy the slow periods of a design phase. There are times, especially during the holidays, where work gets a little bit slow. Appreciate those moments, because there are times where it gets so busy that you wish you had a slow moment. And as always, stay engaged, stay curious, always be willing to learn more outside of interior design.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessy.
Yeah, sure thing, sure thing.
Please share your contact info in the chat so that people can, oh, actually it's right here. Perfect.
Yeah, so stay connected if
ask questions.
You want, like, yeah, if you want any professional feedback for your portfolio or want to grab coffee or beer, whatever it may be, happy to do so.
Awesome, thanks so much. Next up, we'll hear from Natalie. We'll try to keep the rest of these shorter and sweeter so that we have time for questions. So remember your questions.
All right,
Natalie,
hi everyone.
Take it away.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
hi everybody, my name is Natalie. Today I'll be taking you quickly through my career journey so far. So in September of 2015, I started attending Oregon State University's College of Science with actually the major of biohealth sciences, with the goal of eventually becoming a physician's assistant. I've always been very passionate about human health and wellness, and in high school, I was really steered into healthcare because of this passion. I absolutely loved my classes and excelled at them, and so because of that, I thought I was on the right path for the first 2 years of Oregon State. It wasn't until I started job shadowing and kind of getting a feel for the actual occupation that I realized I enjoyed learning about human health and wellness a lot more than actually being in that really intense and kind of gross sometimes environment. And then in November 2017, this is kind of funny, but I was taking Psych 350 at Oregon State, which is human lifespan development. And we were learning about Erickson's theory of development. And in his theory, there's different stages that we all go through as we develop through life. And I realized, well, we were also learning about what it looks like and the consequences of getting stuck in a particular stage. And I realized that I was actually stuck at the identity versus role confusion stage because, I had been telling everyone, I'm going to work in healthcare, I'm going to be a PA, and I was doing well in my classes. And I didn't realize that I was kind of playing a role of what I thought that the type of person that I thought I was supposed to be. And I had been telling everybody I wanted to be for so long that I didn't actually know what my educational and career identity was and what I actually liked. So as you can imagine, this sudden clarity, opened up the floodgates of self-doubt and uncertainty that I was really overwhelmed by. I realized that I was lacking a sense of creativity in my studies and had become kind of disillusioned with what I thought that healthcare was going to be like. So I decided to sit down. I listed out all of the things that I like to do and could see myself being happy doing. I then looked through the list of majors at Oregon State and found ones that, aligned with these other interests. Next page, please. And that's how I found the major Design and Innovation Management / Interior Design at Oregon State. So switching majors in such a drastic way was honestly pretty scary, but it felt so much more free and creatively stimulating through these classes. And I was reinvigorated with my passion for learning. Here's some of my early work that I did in my first few design classes. I also started working as a TA for Oregon State's professional development class, and I got involved in IIDA and eventually became the vice president of Oregon State's IIDA chapter during my final year of undergrad. Next slide, please. In June of 2019, I landed an interior design / project management internship with local government, Lynn County General Services. Unfortunately, I did not enjoy my time here very much. It turned out to not really be interior design in the way that I had imagined and kind of like as they had advertised. Most of my projects, as pictured here, involved pretty much hiring contractors to replace gross old flooring in government offices. And I didn't even get to pick the carpet tile. It was just whatever was cheapest or whatever we had extra of in the county storage. So then I started to panic again. I was like, oh my gosh, do I not even like interior design now either? Like, what am I gonna do? I already changed drastically, and I was now in my 4th year of undergrad. Next slide, please. But this is where I finally figured it out. In my 5th year of undergrad, I discovered healthcare design. It was such a duh moment too. Like I'd cracked the code at what I'm truly passionate about. I couldn't see myself working directly with patients, but I really missed healthcare and the feeling that I was helping make people better. These pictures show a few projects I worked on in my last 6 months of undergrad. So up at the top on the left is a project for my healthcare design studio. And then on the left on the bottom is a project from the 2020 IIDA student design competition, which I recommend if you're interested to check that out. And then the floor plan is from my senior thesis. And something I also want to drive home here is that you may not know exactly what you want to do, especially during your first, couple years of college. But as you take more classes and you just have more life experiences in general, both in school and outside of school, you will figure out, what you have a passion for. And you might have to explore a bit and maybe have a couple mini crises like I did, but you will figure it out. The next slide, please. So then I graduated with a BA in Design and Innovation Management, Interior Design, with a chemistry minor actually, but in a pandemic. And because of COVID, multiple opportunities that I had lined up had completely disappeared. So what did I do? The next slide, please. I decided to go to grad school. I had always had an interest in going to grad school someday, but my situation at the time and with COVID, it kind of just lined up perfectly that I was like, well, I guess I'll just do this now. So in January of 2021, I started my program to pursue a Master of Design Studies in Design for Human Health online through the Boston Architectural College. I included the degree curriculum here so you can kind of see what the program entails, just as an example. I've really enjoyed personally the inclusive design class, design for well-being, and then also health conditions and design, which I'm in right now. This program just perfectly combines my two interests. It combines medical science with interior design and then explores the connections between the two and how there is, an interrelationship between those two fields. And then I also included on here some of the career options associated with this particular degree. At least when I was an undergrad, I had no idea of all the different careers within the design field, and that interior designer isn't the only valuable position. Next slide, please. And then in February 2021, already 1 year ago, I took and passed the WELL AP exam to earn my WELL AP credential, which denotes expertise in the WELL building standard. So if you don't know what that is a performance-based system for measuring, certifying, and monitoring features of the built environment that impact human health and well-being. Well was actually recently updated to version 2. So there's now 10 concepts, which I included here on the left, just for some reference. I personally pursued this credential because the topic is super important to me. And I also thought it could help me attain that healthcare design job that I want in the future. Next slide. So then what? Well, I've done a little bit of freelance design consulting for friends and family. I actually also moved to Koreatown, Los Angeles last year, which has been a huge adjustment from, rainy Portland metro area. I am also currently in the very beginning stages of my master's thesis, and that I'm hoping to cover, well, the topic is still a work in progress, but I'm thinking of exploring how the built environment of hospitals and clinics affects patient anxiety. I am also studying for the LEED Green Associate exam. And on the side, I'm also looking for design jobs that align with my passions and can fit into my grad school schedule. And then someday I hope to become a design instructor to teach students about the intersections between interior design and human health. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any questions during the discussion period or want to reach out, on the side, grad schools, the Well Building Standard, LEED, or anything else, here's my contact information. And then at the bottom, I also included a link to my kind of work in progress portfolio website, because I know as a student, it might be super helpful to just kind of take a peek at, what other design students or design professionals have for their portfolios. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Natalie. Would you also please type your contact info in the chat in case people don't get a chance to write it down right now? Thank you. And Toshi, last but not least,
hey everyone,
you are up.
So my name is Toshiro Tsuha, but you can call me Toshi. A little bit about me. From LA. I'm from Pasadena. I moved here to Portland in 2016. I've always been involved in design. Always interested in it. So in high school, I taught myself web design, and I made my own website, and I started getting paid because I added Google Sense, I had ads into it. So, and then that changed into graphic design. I took some classes in high school and then in college as well, and also photography. So when I moved to Portland, I realized that I wanted to try interior design. I've always gone out to restaurants. I'm a big avid foodie, and I travel a lot, so I'm always interested in hotel lobbies, how they're designed, how restaurants and bars are always really cool aesthetic and everything like that. So I was like, you know what, let me try interior design. So when I moved here in 2016, I found the interior design program at PCC. So I enrolled, and at the time they had a program where it was 2 years there, and then they were partnering with Marylhurst University, it's a private art school in Lake Oswego. So it was going to be 2 years there, 2 years at Marylhurst to get my bachelor's in fine arts. And 1 year into PCC, Marylhurst had just closed. So my credits wouldn't go anywhere else. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, if I was going to drop out and just go to Art Institute or something else. But I was like, you know what, I'm just going to stick it out and make the best of it. So I'm actually really glad because they've taught me so much there. So here's my timeline just really quickly. 2018, I was at PCC, and then the program there at PCC had me intern at Lore Design. I was there for about 4 months, and then I interned again at Nest Showroom. After graduating college, I've been applying for jobs and I was getting hired. So I was like, you know what, I needed to start intern and continue learning and get some experience, So then I went to Pratt and Larson, and I've been there for a year now, and now I'm sharing my experience at IIDA. So thank you so much for having me here. You can go to the next slide, Peter. All right, so at PCC, the program there, to tell you pretty much so much everything, hand drafting, 3D digital rendering with V-Ray. We taught I learned AutoCAD, SketchUp, V-Ray, Photoshop, InDesign, a lot of space planning, color theory. I even did word working, which was pretty cool. Lighting design, building codes, structural systems, and sustainability. Those were all really very, very essential in interior design. And then business skills as well. There was professional practices, communications, operations, and budgeting. So what I've learned there is all those programs I still use today. Sketching and hand drafting is really, really important. I use that at work every day. How to read a set of plans, obviously. People come with their plans at Pratt and Larson all the time. And then scale and proportion, how to present to clients, which I do every day. And then time management as well. Oh, sorry, you can go to the next one, Peter, sorry.
No worries, it's lagging a little bit on my end too, so I'll try to be more proactive. Oh, I think I went one too far.
No worries.
Okay, let's go back. And just so folks know, as a time check, we're going to have some time for questions. We'll probably keep our break a little bit shorter because I do want to make sure that we have time for you all to ask questions of these panelists. So here we are, NKBA.
All right, so yeah, so during school too at PCC, I was a part of the NKBA student chapter. I was secretary there. I was in charge of making little events for like all the student officers. And I was lucky enough to attend the KBIZ, the Kitchen and Bath Industry Show in Las Vegas on their penny. So that was really cool. I got to learn, there's so many vendors. I learned a lot of product knowledge. I met with a lot of people all over in the industry. There was also really cool, a lot of seminars that I went to, like architectural photograph and like a lot of cool smart home technology. There was, and also in the NKBA kitchen and bath program at school was really cool. Like I learned so many different really cool key features of AutoCAD and SketchUp. Yeah, and then you can go to the next one, sorry. So, so internship. So like I said, during school, during my last semester quarter, I interned at Lower Design, which is really cool. They're down Lake Oswego. I assisted with the designers there on the projects. I maintained the library there. I helped them prepare presentations for meetings, and I got to sit in on them. So I really learned how to like communicate and how to talk and how to interact with the clients. And then I also went to a lot of on-site measurements, on-site to measure. And then at Nest Showroom, I was sourcing furniture and fixtures. And I really learned a lot about the trades program there. Pricing and pooling, organizing textiles and fabrics, and then I created design presentations for clients all the time too. I learned there a lot of wall coverings, trade account pricing, furniture customizations, and applications to different types of textiles. And then at Pratt and Larson, which I'm at now, I started there the beginning of last year. I actually started as in the studio factory where I was part of the quality control. I learned a lot about the process of making tile, handmade tile. It's very labor intensive, but it's also really cool. And then quickly there, 3 months after I got promoted to showroom assistant, they looked at that role opened up and I applied to it. And then they saw my portfolio, my resume, and they're like, oh my God, like, why are you in the studio? Like, you should be up here with the designers. So that was really cool. And finally, I felt like somewhere like I belong, like I was like doing a lot of design. So to this day right now, like what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, I maintain the library, so many types of stone, marble, onyx, glass, tile. Like I've been learning so much about product. I also help the design. So I'm the showroom assistant. So as that I meet with clients too, and I help them make design choices. And then I also draft up quotes and process orders. There's so much math involved into calculating tile and square footage and so much. Like it's crazy. I've been learning so much there. And also I'm part of the social media team. I take pictures of a lot of stuff and all the product and then post it on Instagram. So what I've learned at Pratt and Larson is consultations, product knowledge a lot, estimating skills, current trends. And then I've expanded my network because there's so many people that come into the showroom, vendors from, well, I speak to vendors over the phone all over the nation, but designers coming in from all over Portland, and the contractors and design build. So that's been really awesome to put my name out there and talk to them. And so for tips and advice, I would say use your network. The business world depends on relationships, so don't be afraid to reach out. That's how I got to Pratt Larson, by reaching out to the head of department of interior design at PCC, and also for Nest Showroom, reaching out to professor. I would say be flexible. things don't always work out the way you imagine, but they can still work to your benefit. Like me going to Pratt and Larson, I didn't really want to be a studio worker, but that got me to where I am today as a showroom assistant. So that's really cool. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I know it can be intimidating, but it's not expected that everyone knows everything. And then I would say, don't take things personally also. Everyone has different styles of communication. That's it. I will put my contact info in the chat. Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you. We'll open it up to questions. Does anyone have questions for any of these 4 awesome people? I can pan through quickly. I guess if no one has a question, I can kind of. Oh, we do have one, Charity.
Hi, I guess I have questions like for kind of all of you at the same time. So some that are general that you can all answer, and then some that are more specific. So a lot of you talked about how like reaching out to people was important and like networking or like applying for like Ken and Barry and Eddie when like they weren't hiring. How do you go about like doing that in like this virtual like situation that we're in right now in a professional manner without like annoying people, I guess?
A simple email, honestly. I mean, both pre-COVID and during COVID times, you always want to start with an email introduction. Just if you have connected with a designer in the past, reconnect with them over email. I'm sure they would love to hear from you again. And on your LinkedIn page, put a profile picture of yourself. That way, if they ever need to reference your name again, they can put a smile to your name. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say even just creating a LinkedIn, like I never thought of making one, but as a professional, like you need to put your name out there and make sure like you're like trying, reaching out to people, connecting. I think that really helps a lot with networking and getting your name out there.
And I would add to that, I think when you're reaching out to a specific company, you need to speak to specifically what you can give to their company. So do your research, find out what the company stands for, speak to how your values and your work ethic and your passions align with what the company is doing. I think that'll come across a lot more strongly than just, I am a professional, you know, I have these skills. Speak to specifically why you want to be a part of that firm.
I have other questions if no one else does. Another thing that you guys
Charity,
talked about.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I do see a couple hands. So why don't we
okay,
just,
then
we'll
I'll
just
wait.
do rapid fire and we'll come back. I know. Was it Ashton or did someone else have one?
Hey, Charity. Charity and I are also in the same program, so sorry to cut you off. But a lot of you guys talked about balancing work and life. And I feel like as a student, it's really easy to get caught up in everything and like your mind always being focused on this project, like no matter what you're doing. So I'd love to hear just how you guys learn to balance work and life at the same time, and maybe just mentally how you balance that for yourselves.
Yeah, I think with my company, at least, work-life balance is a big value for them. So they create the platform and the foundation for me to maintain a good work-life balance. So I think that can be something that you seek when you're looking at companies. You can express that during your interview, that that's really important to you, and ask them to expand on those sort of benefits that they're creating for their employees that would allow you to have a good work-life balance. And if you find yourself in a situation where it is difficult to have that work-life balance, I think one of the presenters was speaking so well to it. I think it was Jessy, saying, create boundaries for yourself. You know, you're allowed to express that you have limits, and that isn't necessarily saying that you're not going to give 100%. Like you can certainly give 100% while also honoring what you need, because ultimately your employer wants a designer that is healthy and showing up to work like ready to contribute to their fullest self. So if they're not doing well in their own life, like they're not going to give their best work. So it's a benefit for both parties.
Thank you.
It's a good answer. Does that answer your question well enough? Well, yeah, thumbs up. Okay, we'll jump to the next one. Peter, you said you saw someone. I missed them, so.
I know. We're Eve and I are tag teaming, trying to make sure we get everyone. Was there someone else that had their hand raised or motion that they wanted to ask a question?
Otherwise, feel free to ask in the chat, because then we can see that you're asking your question.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go for it, Emma.
This is also kind of to all of you guys. Do you guys ever deal with imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you, I don't know, recover from that?
I can go because I'm kind of still in that right now. I definitely like get imposter syndrome. I remember when I first got my internship and like even my first, why am I here? Like they're gonna somehow find out that I have no idea what I'm doing. But the thing is that especially when you start a new job, no one's expecting you to dive into it knowing, you know, how the office works, how every single program works. If they have a program specific one that you haven't learned, you know, you kind of have to like have confidence, but like other people have expressed, like, don't be afraid to ask questions. And that's something that I did during my internship, especially, you know, I would work on something for my own, like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Let me, you know, work on this for, you know, a few minutes and see if I can figure out how to do it on my own instead of like automatically going to somebody. But if you're unsure and you know, you've looked it up online and you're like, okay, I'm actually struggling with this. What I did is I would go to one of my mentors and I'd be like, hey, you know, this is the problem I'm faced with. I did a little bit of research. I personally think that this would be, you know, my next steps to solve this issue. What do you think? Is there like something that you would recommend? And that's something that they really liked too, was that you had already looked into solving the problem before coming to them, but that you didn't just blaze on ahead, not knowing if that was the correct thing to do, but you kind of checked in. So that I think would be my biggest point of advice.
Another advice I can give is, at least in my interview process, I was very honest from the very beginning that I knew Revit. However, after working at a furniture dealership that only worked on AutoCAD, I kind of lost the skills. So I was very honest and said, I know Revit, however, I will probably need some basic training just for refresh again. Are you guys willing to invest a little bit of time and energy on me? And sure enough, my first or second week, I was signed up for a quick Revit 1 week just training class, and that was it. I was just honest and blunt, and it goes a long way once you're honest, honestly.
Quick jumping in, talking about technology, like all companies have their own way of using all of the different technology that's on the market now. And so even if you feel like you're really good at using Revit or AutoCAD, like you're still going to be learning every day on the job, like how to become more efficient at using that software and whatnot. So just because you don't know everything right now does not mean that you're limited in your skill set, and they're going to see past that in terms of whether or not you are a viable candidate for a position. So never worry about not knowing everything, because things are always changing anyways. Any other questions? Panning through. Raise your hand if you have something.
I have a quick follow-up question. When you guys talk about a design mentor, is that like a formal thing? Like, do you ask somebody like, hey, will you be my mentor? And then like, I don't know, schedule meetings? Or is it just someone that you've like really connected with, like a teacher or something, and you just kind of reach out whenever? Like, do they know that they're your mentor? Like, I don't really know how that works.
Yeah, good question. So, sorry, whoever wants to answer first. Was that me? I couldn't tell. Anyways, I had a design mentor. It was actually a senior interior designer that I connected very, very well with when I was just starting off in college. And I asked her, I was like, hey, is it okay if we meet for coffee every 2 months and just talk about what I'm working on? And I would love your advice. And is it okay if I can just really email you and ask you a few questions about your experience, or just someone that you can lean on and get more direction from if you ever have any doubts or need a spark of inspiration over coffee, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
but it could be a teacher, it could be someone in the profession as well. So
I was
anyone.
also gonna say it could be either or. You know, you don't have to have a very like professional mentorship situation. It can also be super casual, or you can have a super, you know, they know they're your mentor, etc. I know at my internship, I kind of had my like assigned mentor as an intern, but it's kind of funny because I became closer with one of the other designers there. And to me, they felt more like my mentor. You know, I was working with them a lot more just on projects, just that's how it ended up working out. And so I don't think it has to be like a strict mentorship opportunity, but it could be, and that can also be really valuable.
Toshi, did you have some thoughts too?
Yeah, I was gonna say, one of my professors, my kitchen and bath professor, she'd always offered to help us out after school or whatever. I got really close with her because we were at the NKBA student chapter together. She was the head of it. So when I needed help or needed to learn something, I would message her, text her, and then she'd have me come over to her studio at her house. And she just like, honestly, just teach me so much, you know, like it was, you just got to ask sometimes, like, you know, just ask for help. So she was always that mentor for me. And she's connected me also for networking too. Like she got me to connect me to some of my internships. So
that's great advice. Yes, ask for help, be communicative. I think all four of our awesome panelists, Toshi, Jessy, Natalie, and Candice, all kind of touched upon that. Like, tell people what you need. People are all here to support you, to help you, especially as like a student working in the field for the first time, or if you're going back to school. Like, no matter what your situation is, like, just advocate for yourself, and people will support that. I think with that, I know we're a little over time. Want to make sure that everyone gets their break, so we will hop to that next. But thank you, awesome emerging professionals panel. I saw that they all put their contact info in the chat, so definitely reach out if you have questions or want to follow up with them after this event.
Yeah. Thank you, Eve. Yeah, big round of applause to all of those great presenters. We're going to take an 8-minute break now. All of you should have received now, check your email, but you should have gotten your lunch gift card. We know those were kind of getting sent out this morning, so please drop in the chat if for some reason something happened, but those should be in your inbox. So feel free to go ahead and like get that lunch order in if you want. You can save it, don't have to use it now. And we'll jump back at 10:10. So take time to stretch, go to the bathroom, walk around, go outside. It's beautiful here in Oregon. Hopefully it's beautiful other places too. And just please be back right at 10:10 so that we can jump to our next session, where again, we'll have kind of a panel part and then we'll have lots of time for questions in the next session. So thank you all, and we'll see you back at 10:10.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And I'm back on if anyone has questions or needs anything. We've got a few more minutes, but wanted to make myself available for anyone that might need anything.
There's a few of us in the chat who just haven't received an email for lunch.
Yeah, thank you. I know I had someone reach out, so I'm gonna kind of, I haven't done this on the back end of how we got these sent out. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, check your junk or your spam folder, because sometimes they will go there. I believe it's from Grubhub, so just maybe check there first. You should have gotten it probably about like between 9:30 or 8:30 and 9:30. So check there first, and if you don't see it, please put your email in the chat, and we will follow up and get you that. It might be after the event, so my apologies, but you will get that, and you can use that for a future lunch, and maybe it's a lunch that you go to with a professional. But yeah, please check your spam and your junk first, and then if not, put your email in the chat and just or direct message me, Peter, and I'll make sure that I keep a list of who did not get the gift card.
Thank you.
Yep.
I see Jessy out there from Miller Knoll just joined. So thanks for joining us, Jessy, on your Saturday.
Thank you. Greetings from Coronado Island.
Is it nice down there?
I'm not going to say.
Well,
horrible
it is
out
sunny.
there.
It's sunny here today. It's not hot, but it's sunny.
It's raining cats and dogs out there. No, it's beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful day. And I'm happy to be part of the group today, by the way.
I think we're just waiting for a couple others to come back and Nita to join as well.
Peter, a quick question for you. Are you going to moderate our slides?
Yes, so I will be, I'll be screen sharing on my end, and just let me know next. The order that I have it in now is I've got Sandra to kick us off, and then Nita, and then you, Jessy, to wrap us up. And we'll start, in a minute or so, and we'll go to about 10:50, 10:55.
No
we've
worries.
just had, about a 10-minute break, so hopefully students are rested and ready to keep going on.
I'm hoping this isn't the moment that my dogs decide to bark, so I apologize ahead of time. They're always quiet until I jump off mute, and then it's like in the background. So who knows? But my kids are not here, so that's a plus. I'm not going to get a 4 and a 7-year-old jumping in.
What kind of dogs do you have?
I have a 12-year-old golden retriever and a 9-month-old Havanese, just crazy puppy.
Oh, wow.
We did the COVID puppy. I don't know what we were thinking, unfortunately.
You know, a lot of people did. A lot of people have dogs in a companionship. And then now, unfortunately, the shelters are back up to having more dogs than they know what to do with.
Yeah, we tried to rescue a couple months ago, and we had a really hard time trying to, but we were still able to get another puppy. So yeah.
Okay, well, I'm getting a few more messages about gift cards not coming in. I want to make sure that I don't forget anyone. So I apologize if I'm asking you to do this twice, but if you could put it in the general chat too, I'll have even Sandra and I make sure we can screenshot. I don't want to forget any student. So check your junk or your spam. It should have come through. I guess I want to make sure have other folks gotten it? Is it just some wonky emails? Anyone want to speak up if they did see the gift card come through?
Yeah, I got mine.
Okay.
I got mine too.
Okay, so it might just be something that we'll have to look into, but I'm glad that some of you are getting it. And apologies again, we'll figure that out on our end. But yeah, we're going to jump in just so that we kind of keep on schedule. I will kind of introduce, I'll be moderating for this session, and I'm going to just screen share to kind of kick us off with where we're going next, which I'm really, really excited about. We've got a really great group of presenters and opportunities for discussion with our next session, which this is going to be our session in career pathways, but firm leaders. So we had the great opportunity before this to hear from 4 different designers and their past. They're all kind of starting out in the industry. And now we're going to hear from some seasoned folks who have been in the industry, a while and have very career paths, have very different experiences, and they're going to talk about kind of where they are, what they do in their day-to-day, and just share some advice too that they can impart upon you as a student, and also things they look for when they hire people, how they bring people onto teams. So this will be a really great insight into looking into the leadership structure at an architecture, furniture, and different organizations that are involved in the architecture and design industry. So we're going to kick it off with Sandra, and I will drive slides. And so just say next when you want me to progress, and we'll jump right in, and we'll keep it short and sweet so we have lots of time for discussion. But yeah, I will move forward if that sounds good.
Great. Thanks, Peter. I'm not going to dive deep into a lot of the roles that I've taken on because I've taken on a few, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask. So my name's Sandra Jakubowski. I am the A&D market manager for Pacific WRO, which is a furniture dealership that represents Herman Miller and now Knoll. And I'm going to share a little bit about the path that I got to get here because I've been all over the industry. So next slide. So really high level, I was a graduate from Oregon State University in 2005, so go Beavs. I did some pretty quick internships while I was there. One was at a place called Interior Motives, which focused on residential, and I really quickly disqualified that I ever wanted to go the residential path. So I recommend trying lots of things and finding things that maybe aren't for you or that you fail at. And then I got an awesome opportunity to intern at YGH, which I will plug IIDA as well. I got this through some networking I did at some design events through IIDA. So I do think it's so worth it to go out and network with this group because you never know where some of these opportunities land you. My internship at YGH was really informative for me because I quickly learned that commercial interior design was the path that I wanted to take. And I loved it. And I loved being a part of an interiors group within that team, within the architectural realm. So that was a great start for me. And then I'm not going to go in detail on this slide about all the rest of my path, but I really flipped back and forth between furniture and architecture throughout the next almost 20 years. And I'll jump into that right now. So next slide. So my first job out of college was with Pacific WRO, the company that I'm with now. And just like Candice talked to you guys about her experience at Hyphn, I jumped into a design role. So I did a lot of specifics around space planning and CAD drafting and did some fun learning on like detail of what furniture was. And I got to work in a showroom, which I thought was really exciting at the time. But I only did this for 6 months because I got the opportunity to move to Dublin, Ireland with my then boyfriend, now husband. So I jumped ship pretty quick and I moved to Ireland. Was so lucky to get a job there after looking for a couple months at a really prestigious firm called Scott Tallon Walker Architects. They're probably the largest and most well-known in Ireland. And sometimes I still don't know how I got this job, but it was pretty incredible. I was one of 3 interior designers for about 150 architects. And we got to do tons of cool projects, which you'll see. One of them was for the largest stadium in Ireland, and another was for a lot of commercial workplace projects. I did hotels, I did residences. It's just, I got to see so many different projects within this company. And it was just an awesome opportunity. I was there for 2 years, and then 2008 rolled around, which was the recession. And the writing was on the wall that my husband and I at that point needed to return back to the States to kind of find work and keep work. So we had a 2-year contract there. So moving forward a little bit, we moved back to Portland, Oregon, which is kind of my home base. I'm also born and raised in Portland, so I got to jump away and come back. I also looked around for jobs at that time. The unemployment rate was about 25% in the interior design and architecture world, so it was a rough go. I was fortunate to get this job at Opsis Architecture, and there started to become a thread that I saw, which was that I started in furniture. One of the reasons I got the job in Ireland was because they had a big furniture project and I got pulled in. And when I looked for positions here, Opsis had a very large project related to furniture and didn't have anyone on their staff that knew that. So it was a super great in for me. However, I was the one interior designer for about 40 architects at that time. So it was a hectic position to have as well. But I got to experience a totally different realm of design. They focus a lot more on higher education and theater work. So it was a very different, but really fun atmosphere and great clients to have. So you'll see on the next slide, one of my favorite projects that I got to do there was at the U of O Alumni Center. So even though I graduated from OSU, you can still work with your competition and appreciate them. And also, you know, you're probably going to be in some of these photographs from time to time. I get to be in this little fireplace photo. You get to see like your terrible fashion choices over the years, unfortunately. So this was a really great experience, but after 3 years of being the sole designer for them, I burned out really hard. I was working 70-hour weeks. I was pulling all-nighters constantly. The good part was that I got to be in marketing, I got to be in client meetings, I got to do it all. But in doing it all, you can just burn out because you have so much going on all the time, being on the front end and the back end of projects. So I really hit a crossroads in my life and my career. You can kind of see that in the next slide. I wanted to think through what were my values moving forward? What did I need if architecture wasn't going to be my path? Because I had gone to school for that. I had really fallen in love with the architectural side of the world. And then I just realized that maybe this wasn't the way that I could move forward, just for a number of reasons. So I went back, and you guys talked about mentors. I went back to my original job, and the owner there, Terry Wren, had become kind of a mentor to me. And I asked him, what should I do? Where did he think my skill set would take me? And he said, you should try sales. I really think that you would be good at this space. And I honestly had no interest in doing it. But when I thought about my job as an interior designer, I was constantly marketing to get new projects for the firm. And even when you're within your project, you're constantly selling your design concept to your clients. So it wasn't a huge leap to go into the sales world. So I decided to jump ship, go back to the dealership world, and move into a sales position, which was very different than the design world. So next slide. I was really fortunate at that time that I got to take on Nike as an account. And over the next 10 years, I got to focus in on them holistically, and really not just Nike, but all of the design partners that they use throughout the country. I got to work with design firms like O+A out of California. I got to work with a ton of companies locally, like Skylab that Nita's at, Hacker, Sarah, just tons of firms. And it was such a great experience because the design team at Nike is also very design driven and has such an incredible creative output of what they're doing in projects. And even on the lower part of that slide, you can see that's actually LeBron James' Instagram feed. He recently toured one of the projects out there at Nike and showcased some of the custom furniture that we did. So that was a pretty cool career highlight. But after 10 years of doing this, I realized I was not necessarily burning out, but just ready for something new and different. So recently I decided to changed to a new position where I got to represent our team as a whole and be more strategic about how we partner with our A&D teams throughout Portland and Oregon. And I got to move up into our leadership team after doing this for 10 years and really understand how as a company we set our strategies, how we go about and build projects and pull people in. So it's just kind of a new realm for me. And we also are welcoming Noel into our brand. So this recent change for representing Herbert Miller, and now we get to represent Noel as well, which is in itself 18 brands of furniture. And as a dealership, we represent hundreds of others. So it's a really amazing toolkit that I get to take out to design partners and showcase what we have to kind of create and bring their vision to life. So that's my almost 20-year career in a nutshell. And I think I threw my contact information on the next slide, but I'm also on the board with Peter. I love working with students. It's a passion of mine. Like others have said, I think it's great if you can reach out to professionals and just say, I'm interested in learning more about what you do. That's why all of us are here today. So feel free to reach out to me as well. And that's me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sandra. We're getting a little bit of echo, but oh, it went away. Okay. So we are super excited. We're going to have Nita now present, and I'm going to turn it over to her to actually screen share her content. So let's see. Nita, are you able to do that on your end? Does it let you? Oh, and I can't hear you.
Now?
Yes, I can hear you. And are you able to screen share? Is it letting you?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, perfect.
I think after 2 years of Zoom, we'd have it figured out. So, hi everybody. I have here on the screen, this is just a photo of the team at Skylab that I work with. And I have been there for about 4 years. I'm principal and director of interior design, and I work with an incredible team of people that I am inspired by every single day. So my passion in design and my passion in this industry is really elevated by the people that I work with. So I just wanted to kind of share that and acknowledge them on the screen as well. Skylab is a company that this is a little bit of our information. We're architects, designers, creators, and entrepreneurs making today what we believe will inspire and connect people tomorrow. The reason that I ended up at Skylab, and I kind of will talk through a little bit of my career and background, but I am really inspired by the fact that we don't just practice architecture and interior design. For me, it was really important, and you'll see in some of my projects coming up, to integrate all ideas of creativity and kind of the human experience in design. So the idea that we can bring brand identity, that we can bring sort of user experience and elevate it in a different way, that we can be making in the studio and prototyping and sort of testing what we're designing and implementing it before it ever gets to our end user was really, really exciting to me. So our work is really focused on, kind of revealing the unseen, and that's really kind of what excited me about being at Skylab. Since I've been there, we work on a lot of different types of projects. All of our projects are focused on innovation. So we speak a lot about regenerative design, which earlier on in my career, I learned a lot about sustainability. I went to school at U of O. We talked a lot about sustainability, but the idea of regeneration in kind of giving back to our earth and leaving a place better than we found it is something that we practice, and that is kind of a really integral part. So I'm just sort of flipping through some project imagery so you can see a little bit of a background of what we do at Skylab. But backing way up, Sandra, go Ducks. I studied interior architecture at the University of Oregon. I actually started the program. I did 2 years in architecture, and somewhere midstream, I took an interior architecture studio and realized that I was more interested in kind of the tactile connected experience of interior design as opposed to sort of the bigger picture of maybe building envelopes or structure that were, just to very broadly sum up the differences between architecture and interiors program. But I really like the idea that there was a technical aspect of interior architecture. So I kind of continue that. I listed here my 2 jobs that I had in school because these 2, particularly my work study, was really pivotal in me growing my professional career. So I worked at the School of Architecture and Allied Arts, and through that, I met a lot of professionals in Portland in the industry. And in meeting those professionals, I was able to build relationships with them and build a network while I was in school. So my first job interview, which I didn't even realize was happening, was actually my thesis review, and somebody that I had met through my work study job sent their interior design principal to review my thesis project, and I got a job offer in an email the next day after I did that thesis presentation. So that's just to say that you never know, those presentations and those conversations and the engagements that you have with professionals as you're in school can have a really big impact in shaping your career and in building a network, which, especially if you choose to stay in the Northwest, but really anywhere in the country, as Sandra mentioned, a lot of the jobs, I got my first job at SRG because of my professional network. I got my second job at Skylab because of my professional network. I just happened to be talking to someone who had gotten her job through the professional network. So don't underestimate the questions that you can ask or the relationships that you can make with professionals. So I started in 2005 at SRG. Like Sandra mentioned, sometimes you just end up working on things that you never thought that you would be doing. I started my very first project here was the Shriners Children's Hospital in Honolulu, and concurrently started working on the American University of Paris, which both of those projects made me realize that I really love working in places that are really cool to travel to, and that surprisingly a lot of people in the industry don't necessarily want to travel for whatever reason. So the job in Paris, I raised my hand. It was my second week at SRG, and I said, I took 2 weeks of French in high school. Send me to Paris. Ended up being a 10-year project, and I worked there. I basically lived in Paris a quarter of the time and worked on that project. So it was a really incredible opportunity. I also did a lot in higher ed projects at Oregon State, Portland State, PCC. I think I worked with 30 different higher ed institutions. And from that, ended up working also in kind of the athletics world for higher ed. So the Marcus Mariota Center in Oregon, the Jane Sanders Stadium, the Lynn Tompkins Stadium, and realized how much I love kind of the branded environments. So as I was working on Mariota, I was also concurrently working on a Nike project that I started with SRG and then actually ended up finishing with Skylab. So I've been working on the Serena Williams building, which is this here on the right, with Sandra and a lot of other great industry partners since 2013. So I made the transition to Skylab just for a little bit of kind of professional growth and to think about some, in growing my career in other project types. I loved working in higher ed. I really enjoyed the work that I did in healthcare. But when I started working in athletics and workplace, I just realized that I was really passionate about kind of the branded environments and kind of the level of interior design that you can do. The picture on the left, I just dropped in here because this is a contract negotiation that we had with our client, and all of our dogs ended up showing up. So they sat on our lap and we had this really great conversation. So this isn't the Nike client, but really the people that we work with, our clients, can kind of make our days. So without rambling too much, my career path beyond design really at some point got focused in management of both internal teams and also project teams. So I now do kind of creative direction for interiors, but I'm also working a ton on planning projects, large scale hospitality projects, large scale workplace projects, and are engaging a lot with our landscape architects. It's really interesting. There's this really great correlation between the experience design in interiors and landscape architecture. So I end up managing a lot of architecture and planning projects. And this one, which I didn't mention, is my first project at Skylab was the world's largest cruise ship, which I had never worked on before. It was like a wild studio project because the shipyard does all of the engineering and all the technical drawing. So they're just like, we want to see some cool shit. And you're like, okay, we'll just do a bunch of cool stuff. Like, how about this? And they're like, make it weirder. So, you never know like what clients you're going to end up working with. And this again was a relationship from a project that we had worked on 15 years prior. And the owner now worked with this brand. So sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I'm taking more than my allotted time, but the last thing that I wanted to mention was that beyond my professional network and kind of additive to it, one of the things that's been most pivotal in my career growth and in me making connections and kind of being able to land where I am was my involvement in IIDA. And Peter didn't pay me to say this, but there's really, being IIDA president in 2007 kind of launched my career into meeting a lot of incredible people, being able to be on juries for design awards for other chapters, which kind of kept me really current in terms of what other people were doing and seeing really incredible design work. The relationships that I have with, some of these people that you see here on the screen are become professional mentors and peers all around the country and all around the world. And, that would never have happened if I hadn't been really engaged in IIDA. So that was sort of my roundabout career path, but IIDA has always been present. And I think those relationships have been pretty critical. So that is me.
Thank you, Nita. And I'm going to further the plug. I just put in the chat the link to the membership for a student. So we're gonna obviously encourage you to be a part of IIDA, but I think what everyone's touched on is the relationships and the network that you build. So I'm really, really excited to have Jessy present now and talk about relationships and business development and sales and so many great topics. So I will go ahead and get the deck pulled up and we will keep moving forward here. Okay, are folks seeing my screen there? That's all good. Okay, take it away, Jessy.
Hi, thank you all for having me today. I really appreciate it. I think it's encouraging to have all the students here to find out what opportunities they have as you're going through your opportunity to learn different things and really encounter different job opportunities. I think you finally realize when you say, okay, you're going to join this job. So what does that mean? And, when I first started my career in business, I never thought that I would end up working with the most talented architects, the most talented firms and contractors in the world. And, I look at my career now, this month will be 15 years working for Herman Miller. And it's just, I'm very humbled by the experience because there's so many talented people that are just willing to do the best job they can. But with that comes a massive amount of responsibility working for a company as large as Herman Miller and now Knoll. So one of the things that, that I do at Herman Miller being a market development executive is I work with our dealerships that are responsible to work with our designers to create these amazing spaces that you see everybody's been talking about, from the conceptual to the actual physical. And Nike being one of our largest clients at Miller Knoll, it's a huge responsibility because it takes a village of people to conceptualize and get the client the deliverables that they're looking for on time, within specification, and in the budget restraints that they're looking for. So your career can take a lot of different paths when you're working for a large organization like mine. I started in operations. I literally started from the ground up and just started like, a lot of the people on this call today, like, Candice, Jessy, and Toshi, they were perseverant. They were tenacious. They didn't want to take no for an answer. They wanted to make sure that they had opportunities. And it's the same way when you join the organization is, what's out there for me? How do I develop a career path? Do I, look at other people, mimic what they want, what they're doing, to get the mentors that you're looking for to catapult your career to different trajectories, because you never know where it's going to take you. I think half of the challenge is, where do you want to take your job opportunities? And working for a large organization like Herman Miller and now Miller Knoll, we're a global organization. We can do business in 247 places around the world. And that just opens up your opportunity to work anywhere you please. The thing is, don't be afraid. And I know that sounds like easy to say, but I remember those butterflies of like, I'm going to take this chance. I'm going to go into sales. It's scary. What do? You're going to have all these responsibilities. But once you're there, you really start to develop the confidence to be able to have the conversations with work team leaders and mimic other people to give you the confidence you need to move forward into the next opportunity that you have. I mean, even like prior to Herman Miller, I worked at Steelcase. I learned so much at Steelcase from the way they like to train their employees and just live that work balance that is so important to make sure that you have the mental health and the capacity to be able to, execute client presentations or being in front of a customer, because that can be an overwhelming task when it's actually your responsibility. When you have a big project that's coming in, it's a couple $1 million like SoFi Stadium, it's all on you, but you have to realize you have your design firm and all of their talent. You have your dealership and all of their talent. And then now you're the global manufacturer with the products and the deliverables. So it's a combination of the three different forces that come together to give you that internal confidence that you're all going to lead together for the common cause, that you're going to do a phenomenal job. And at the end result, you get to see all the beautiful pictures like Nita just shared on her accolades. And I think that's important once you reflect back on your careers, is being able to do that. Can we go to the next slide? So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Was my formula for success, is referrals. Is when you do a good job, ask your customers, hey, I see that you're giving me the thumbs up, that I'm doing such a great job. But in sales, it's always about referrals, because those referrals turn into repeat customers. And when you're asking for the business, then, and you're doing a good job, it's okay to say, hey, I really think that you enjoyed my process. We came in under budget. Everything was great. Everybody's happy. The next customer that you have, just tell them where you came to be able to get the work done. I think that's really important. The second part of it, and I know there was another student or someone else that shared, I want to say was Jessy or Candice. It was about networking. That's so critical to your careers. I know it sounds difficult because, right now we're in a digital realm, but you have LinkedIn, you have, other platforms that you can go out and broadcast yourself, and always be on the cusp of what's interesting in this marketplace that's relevant to your careers. And believe it or not, having a good LinkedIn profile is critical, because if you meet someone at a trade show or you meet someone at a coffee shop, probably the first thing they're going to do is go to LinkedIn and see your profile. So make sure that the things and the topics and the things that you're interested in are being broadcast through LinkedIn, because that's going to be their first chance to say, who is this person? Is it somebody that I would hire? Are they interesting? How can I approach them? Is there an opportunity to maybe work together on some capacity? So make sure your LinkedIn profile is always up to speed. It has all of your latest accolades, your current job situation, so that people understand and know who you are at a moment's notice. And don't be afraid to make friends. I mean, I have friends at Steelcase, I have friends at Hayworth, I have friends at all the different manufacturers, because when you come together at your large trade show like we do in Chicago, it's okay for you to have a network of people that are inside and outside of your, microcosm of what you do,
It just makes and reinforces the fact that it's what you wake up to do in the morning. Next slide. And for me, the internal opportunities is they're within an organization, and depending on what it is, and most companies do a good job of having several different avenues. Herman Miller being such a global company, and we're so large, we do have a lot of internal opportunities, but you'd be surprised how many people don't take advantage or know what's out there. Like, we have such a great diversity and inclusive team. Join a team. They talk about things that are important, not only to your culture and who you are and what you bring to the table, but it also opens you up to meet with other people around the world, your teams in India, your teams in Italy, your teams in Greece. I mean, everywhere that you are, you can always learn from another co-worker or a team member on what they're doing, what's the best practices, how are you approaching things in a different way. It just gives you a much more roundabout way of being able to look at your career in the future. Critical to your success is develop a business plan that's a non-negotiable. You should do that if you're starting your business. Like there was a person here, Jessy, I think, had her own business. Having that business plan is critical. Do one just for yourself. What do you want to do in 5 years in the career? What do you want to do as aspirations when you get out of school? Hey, you know what? I really want to learn how to play the guitar. Those type of things help you get to where you want to go. Crafting your vision board so that it's front and center of where you want to go with your trajectory in your business career. Those are instrumental to making sure that if you're not on the right path mentally, physically, then you have a guiding light to take you where you need to go. And understanding your career focus, that's very important. Know what you want to do. I always knew I wanted to be in sales, but when I started in my career, I wasn't ready for sales. They told me you had to have this tremendous amount of experience. But guess what I did? I started learning from scratch, mimicking salespeople, looking at how they did the job. And then lo and behold, I got my first opportunity because I knew in my heart that I wanted to be a salesperson. And not only did I exceed those expectations, but it's still an ongoing craft. It's still an ongoing opportunity for you to always better yourself as a person, as a professional, as a mentor, and as a coach. That's all I have. I thank you all for your time. Please reach out to me. I'm in California. It doesn't matter.
Fantastic. And Jessy and Nita and Sandra, if you feel comfortable too, maybe drop your email or LinkedIn in the chat. I think, like you all talked about networking, like everyone on this call, I can guarantee you, all the panelists, you've got now 10 people. You could go on your LinkedIn, start to connect and just really start to build that network. So we're going to have about 15, maybe 20 minutes if we slide into the next session a little bit for questions. So I have some as backup, but I really want to give the stage to you as students. This is your chance to ask questions, about these folks and their individual journeys and like what you kind of want to know. So I'm going to let students ask and drop it in the chat or just like motion on your hand, and I'll try to make sure I see who's waving, or just blurt it out.
Can one of you guys give some tips on how to best utilize LinkedIn for networking? Because that's not really something that, I have a LinkedIn, but I don't really know how to utilize it to its fullest potential.
I can answer that. Is that Emma?
Yep.
So Emma, the best way to utilize LinkedIn is, follow the companies that you feel are important to you, and if their culture matches what your aspirations are. And when you start following the different organizations, you'll see their job posting boards. What are they interested in, looking for jobs that maybe are interested to you. What's going to happen is once you start joining those forums, you'll start connecting with people that you see their posts. Then you'll answer back to them, like, that's an interesting topic that you're talking about. And then it just kind of flows through. It's not a one-time thing where you're going to get a call back. Sometimes you just need to be extremely tenacious, especially for me that I'm in business development as well. You got to chase after the business and chase after the people, almost to the point where you may be a little bit irritating, but if you're not, then you're just going to not see opportunities. So I would encourage you to just, join a few different companies that you think are important to you. Really take the time to look at your profile so that it broadcasts exactly what you want out of, you know, your interactions with people. And don't be afraid to message, hey, you know, I'm really interested in this field. Can you take 5 minutes to talk to me about that? Is there a page where I can look at more information about what you do? And you'd be surprised how many people will say, absolutely, here's a link to our new postings, or here's an article for something that we're, you know, currently broadcasting or talking about.
Great question. Other questions, or Sandra, Nita, did you want to hit on that at all?
I just think I would just add that similar to what Jessy was saying, even in the sales world, I hear a lot like, I'm scared to go out and talk to new people. I'm scared to ask for the business. And as a student, I was scared to talk to professionals, but you kind of have to treat it like a toddler treats things. They're never gonna listen when you say no. So they keep asking and keep persisting. As a student, it's okay to keep being persistent and asking people for time or for connections. I think, like I said earlier in the chat, it's a great intro that you're a student and this is the only time you're going to have to play that card and to reach out and say, hey, I'm a student. I'm just really curious about your company or learning more. I don't know if I'm breaking up or if it's echoing, but
no, you're good.
So there's so many professionals that care and want to give back. And I know when I was in school, I got to reach out to a number of professionals, and one of the people that reached back out was Scott Brown, who was at YGH, who I ended up getting my internship with, who's now at GBD, is the lead of interiors that Eve works at. And he's still a mentor to this day because he just has a heart for students and reached out and responded and gave me the time of day to just give me a little bit more insight as to what his firm was like at the time and what the profession was like. So there's so many people out there that really care and know that students are passionate about moving into this field and want to help you out. So I would reach out to as many people as you can while you're in school.
And I'm going to like mini piggyback on that. I think with LinkedIn, make it complete. That's the biggest thing. Like I will accept pretty much any student who responds to me, but when it's not complete, I'm like, I don't see a photo of you. I don't see where you went to school. I don't see any student projects. Like take a half hour and just fill it out and make it complete. And honestly, making your LinkedIn complete sets you above like the bar of so many people who log on and check it every 5 years and never engage with the platform. And secondly, I will also add, because I did not think about this in school, recruiters and people who want to hire you are on LinkedIn, and you can follow recruiters, you can follow companies. And sometimes, you know, with a recruiter, their job is to fill another position. And so they're going to go for the easiest, you know, candidate to connect with. And if you're on LinkedIn and you respond to messages, like they'll want to go to those profiles and those people first rather than, you know, digging into the weeds. So lots of jobs happen on LinkedIn. So that's
Is it okay to like follow people, like connect with people that you don't actually know?
Yeah, I was about to say that I would follow as many people as you can. And, you know, that some people kind of curate their LinkedIn. I think it's a lot more open now, but like I always post anytime Skylab posts that we're hiring, I always like repost it on my LinkedIn. So following people, especially in leadership or even in marketing or HR or following firms or places that you aspire to be at is the best way to see quickly like what job postings besides IIDA's website. But there's that's a really good way to kind of stay in touch with who's hiring.
Do we have other questions from students?
I would just jump in and say you can apply the same criteria that Laura was discussing with resumes to your LinkedIn. Like your LinkedIn is basically your marketing page. Like treat it as an important resource and it will serve you really well.
Yes, and I know we will follow up after the session with that resume worksheet again, just to make sure that everyone got it. But yeah, put that content in your LinkedIn. That's a really great tip, Eve. Do we have other questions? I have one. People. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say I'm almost like a little embarrassed about asking this question.
Don't be embarrassed. No question is bad.
and I don't mean any disrespect to even the program I'm in, because I love PCC. I've been really impressed with the quality of the teachers and how much I'm learning. Like it's wonderful. But I also just want to say, how hard will it be for me to get a job getting a degree, or only having a degree from a 2-year program versus a university program? Does anyone have any insight, or am I just overthinking it?
I would love to take that, because I came from Oregon State University at a time when there was a very residentially focused program, and it was not accredited at that time either. And I remember reaching out to professionals and saying, am I going to be looked down upon for not coming from an accredited program? And also U of O like had the territory of like every architecture firm only hired U of O firms. Kudos to Nita. But I would say, like, the advice that I got, and I still feel this today, it's the person, it's not the place that you come from. It's the time and effort that you put in outside of that program, because that program only gets you so far. So you yourself have to seek out professional mentorships and internships and ways to get yourself advanced. And I would say, probably from all of our perspectives, that we hire the people. We don't hire, their resumes. We want to make sure that, who you are, that's going to come through in speaking to professionals. But it's, you yourself have to elevate yourself beyond your program to kind of showcase that.
Because there's technical skills and design aesthetic or process that can be taught. But I think if you have confidence, if you present yourself, well in an interview and a conversation, that goes a really long way. So if there's anyone that's, nervous about interviewing, ask for informational interviews, connect with people that may not be hiring and say, hey, can you give me 20 minutes of your time? And or practice with your friends, or ask your teachers to support that practice. Because I think coming in confidently and being really honest about, hey, I'm really good at this. I'm not proficient in this area maybe, but I'm super willing to learn. Like, I don't know Revit, but I'll go to a class. Or I'm reading all these publications, or this is that professional development I'm doing, goes a really long way. Because I think one of the biggest challenges is when someone comes from a university and they have a good reputation and you see this beautiful portfolio, and then they start working and it turns out that everything in their portfolio was a group project, and maybe they're showing things that wasn't necessarily something that they worked on. And that ingenuine presentation is a lot worse in the long run than just coming to the table and kind of honestly sharing, where your areas of growth are and what you're good at.
And I will oh, go ahead, Jessy. No, go.
No, I think Sandra and Nita are correct. I mean, when we had to hire 25 people across the country relatively quickly, having the background's important, but also the demeanor and the confidence and the ability to be able to, show that through either, a virtual session or in person. That's what's really going to land you the job. Is, can you work with other people? Are you a go-getter? Will you do windows? Will you do floors? That confidence is really going to help you get to the next level.
I was just going to say, there was a question from Erica. It says, in terms of a complete profile, would you also recommend making posts about what you're currently working on? Yes, I think LinkedIn is a great place to share thesis projects and capstones, and put your work out there. Get exposure to the professionals working, and just really putting your information out there is going to serve you. So don't feel scared or nervous to really showcase your work in postings and on your profile. So good question. I want to be sensitive to time, so I'm going to give us maybe another 5 or so minutes, and then we'll take a quick 5-minute break. But do we have any other kind of rapid questions or anything else that's burning on someone's mind that they want to ask our panelists?
Now's the time.
I agree.
So I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask one, and I'm going to make everyone maybe uncomfortable, but I want to know money. So like, coming from design side, like, because that's one of the things we don't talk about in school is like oftentimes you might not make a lot of money. So maybe just talk about money in whatever way you feel comfortable, but how does that come into play with your business development, how you hire people, maybe why you made a switch? Did you see there was more opportunities for potential increase in salary? I mean, money is something that we all should probably talk a little bit about more.
Yeah.
So maybe your thoughts on money.
Well, the squeaky wheel always gets the grease. So if you're not asking for the opportunity to bump your pay up, you're leaving money on the table. And that's just as important as your mental health is your financial viability. And being able to step up and looking at a market where you live, what the current job pays, look that up. There's places like websites where you can check what those salary caps are, and then negotiate properly. Prepare yourself with your portfolio. This is what I've done in the last year. These are the accolades that I've received. I got these milestones. I worked on these extra projects. I worked those 70 hours, like Sandra said, and you know what, I'm due. And, your employer is going to look at that and say, absolutely, you're worth keeping. We see your long-term viability. You're loyal to the company. You want to work here, and they'll make it work for you because they want to keep you. Talent is really hard to find. And some employers value that, and they will find a way to make you whole.
I think advocating for yourself, as Jessy is saying, is super important. You guys are in an incredible market right now where there's a lot more open positions than there are available staff. And so, come to the table and advocate for yourself, but also have done the research, as Jessy mentioned, and talk to your peers, see what other offers people are getting, talk to people in firms of all different sizes if you can, and have those conversations and come to the table prepared and advocate for yourself. Because the reality is that wherever you start, if there's increases every year, that's where it's going, it's going to be based on that first number. Any discretionary bonuses, anything that is profit sharing, if you're in a employee-owned company, like all of that is based on a percentage of wages. And so you don't want to undersell yourself. So also, unfortunately, the reality is that often you have to switch jobs in order to get a more substantial pay increase, but it shouldn't have to be that way. And I would encourage everyone to, if you're in a position where you feel like you're underpaid and like you have to switch job in order to be paid better, have the conversations with your leadership first. And, the mutual respect of having that discussion. More often than not, like Jessy said, they're going to make you whole because it costs a firm about 1.5 times to 3 times someone's salary to onboard somebody new. So depending on, the level of experience. So, have those conversations, and it can be awkward and uncomfortable, but the more we do it, the less awkward and uncomfortable it will be. Roberta looks like she has a lot to say on this topic.
I know, Roberta. We'll let you take a question here.
Oh my God. No, I'm just excited that you broached the subject of pay, because that's the one thing we never talked about in during education time. It's like,
Never.
Yeah, you got to do all that download with just the basics of design. I mean, and you're gonna, you have been inundated with like the concepts of design and implementation and the execution and but the last thing you do is talk about you yourself and how you get paid for something that has no tangible thing. You're getting paid for your time. So, how do you put a value on that? And it's the one conversation I have the most with young designers. There was a point during the shutdown where, there were salary rollbacks. And there, while firm leaders are like, we're just, trying to put bandages on the bleeding. And they're like, oh, a 10%, a 20% rollback. Well, that's well and fine when you're in a senior position. It's like, well, I guess I won't go to Europe this year. But when you are a junior designer, it means, I guess I won't be getting bread this week. Like literal bread, not like bread. So it's, and as Nita and Jessy pointed out, advocate for yourself. You're worth it. So that's what I told all the it's probably why I will never be promoted. I told all those junior designers, take your boss out for a coffee or a nice walk, because, you know, we couldn't really have face-to-faces, but being present, standing up for yourself, which is so hard when you are the low man. But it also shows you got the chutzpah and the commitment to stay in the organization, that you've made a personal investment, and they see that. And, you know, maybe your skills are kind of like, but you can also say, here's where I've come from 0 point, and here I am today. And this is where I want to be in 5 years. So please give me a living wage, or I'm walking. And it's like, and yeah, it's an employee's market. So hooray for you all.
That's great. I so appreciate your perspective, Roberta. I want to be sensitive to time, so I'm just going to plug a couple things. I put some really great resources in the chat. AIA has a salary calculator. IIDA has similar things. IIDA Oregon has a state of the industry report that's great as a regional resource. Payscale.com. There's just so many great resources out there, and I have a sense maybe we've got a future event where we dive even deeper into this topic, because I think there's so much value into negotiation. And I will just say transparently, if you feel comfortable, talk about your salary, destigmatize it. I have felt those experiences where it's weird. I'm like, well, what do you make? What do I make? But when you get comfortable talking about it, you realize, oh, it's simply what I'm paid to do my job. It doesn't mean I'm worth less or more because of what I make. It's simply a monetary transaction between a company and an employee. So I would just encourage that. It helps mitigate bias. It helps mitigate the pay gap. There's so many good ways that we can help fight for good change. So that got me super jazzed, and I'm sorry I'm a little rambly, but we're gonna we're gonna take a couple minute break, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, stand up, stretch, and we'll jump right back about 11:05, 11:06, and we're gonna talk portfolios, and then we're gonna do some portfolio reviews. So for students who asked that they wanted their portfolio review, I sent you an email, but hopefully you got it. It was that you're ready to present in PDF or website form. And that'll happen after the session, discussion part of the first. So kind of get that ready, and we'll roll right along about 11:05, 11:06. And I'll stay on if people have questions or need help with anything. So.
Thank you, Nita.
Thanks, yes, and thanks to everyone, our presenters, Sandra, Nita, Jessy. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Sandra.
Want to make sure we acknowledge you.
Thank you, all the people.
I didn't get to plug it, Peter, but I'm just saying financially go into sales if you want to make.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Why don't you put that pitch on?
We all had great chats about, I've been on both sides, and I think for me, switching wasn't necessarily just financial. It was a lot of things, work-life balance, and just wanting to try something new and different and be in front of clients more. But I think if you have the ability to, it's a different world. You're not going to be on salary. You're going to be in commission, which is different, but where there's high risk, there's high reward on the sales side. So just know that there's different levels of being compensated out there based off of the types and roles. But like everyone else said, it's really important to advocate for yourself and know. When I was at OPSIS and during the recession and I was working 70+ hours a week, I calculated out what I was making, and it was like below minimum wage, and I just couldn't do that anymore. So sometimes that's the reality of the time frame that you're in, not necessarily just the firm or the situation, but know what your boundaries are, and know that you're worth it and what your value is to that company when you're doing that. And then lay out the goals that you might have financially. I think that's really helpful for you to know that internally. I'm not actually a crazy financially driven person, but it is really important for me to be valued in the company and to feel that I'm paid appropriately for the hard work that I put in. So.
Yes, great advice. I'm just going to use the minute before we get going to talk with our panelists. So Roberta, Casey, Kendra, Eve, thank you so much. We are a couple minutes behind, but we'll make good time in our session. We're going to kind of do things we'll have the first part like we talked about is kind of discussion based. We've been a little bit short on time for questions, so I want to make sure we have a hearty amount of time for students around portfolios and questions. So I'd maybe ask if you all want to share maybe just like 5 tips or 3 or 4 tips to start about like kind of do's and don'ts, or just like really high level, or detail level stuff that you think are important, and then maybe we'll take from about 11:20 to 11:40 for like that discussion and kind of Q&A, at which Sandra will lead that portion, and then we'll be we'll be dividing the students into the break rooms, and each of you, I think except Eve, have 2 students to review, so you'll have 20 minutes with each, and about maybe 5 minutes of flex time, and then we ask that you come back at like 12:25, 12:30. And we'll also put students in the room who are not presenting but are just listening for feedback. So feel free to use that portfolio review time to kind of dive deeper a little bit into some of the stuff that we'll talk about on the panel discussion. And I will have Sandra, if you want to just kind of kick things off and maybe do intros for the panelists and just kind of let them roll with it. I know that Eve has an example of a portfolio, so she can drop that link in the chat, but we'll keep it kind of fun and quick, and just make sure we have lots of time for that discussion, if that sounds good with everyone.
Yeah, are you ready to jump in, or you want to wait a couple?
Yeah, no, I say we jump. I think we just keep moving. This day's gone by so quick, actually, but yeah, let's go into it.
Yeah, so we have 4 awesome professionals that are going to give some insight into portfolios, and for the students that really put themselves out there and are willing to kind of showcase this to them, huge kudos to you. I know that that's a scary thing to do, even prior to getting out there into the real professional world, but it shows people that you have a lot of gumption to get out there and do this. And for those of you that are listening in, that's just great practice to hear other people do it and get ideas and get excited about that. So the 4 people that we have on this call, I'm going to go through all of them. So Casey Joyce is from Bora. I actually went to school with Casey many moons ago. She does a lot of internal reviewing within Bora on portfolios, so she's got a lot of great advice. Roberta Pennington with Ankrom. She's been lots of different places. She has been on the IIDA board and served with students and lots of people, so she has tons of advice to share as well. Kendra, who's amazing and has a podcast, and I'm sure you're going to share some of this, has a great heart for working with students through IID also. And then Eve, who's on here from GBD, she's representative on our IIDA student affairs team, is newer to the industry and has some great perspective on just kind of coming into it recently and going through her own portfolio reviews. So I'm going to pass this back out to the team. If you guys have any quick tips and tricks to share just ahead of going into questions from the group and into actual portfolio reviews, I'm going to pass it out to you guys.
I'll let some of the more seasoned professionals go first, and I'll fly on the coattails since I have not seen as many portfolios. Have only worked on my own and seen student ones.
Look for precedent. I, even in my wizened old age, Googled cool resumes and found that because, with the advent of graphics, things have really come a far way from my early resumes. And Peter, I did find I found my pile. I kept all the resumes throughout time. So I hate, I used to hate when people are like, oh, back in my day before emails, but I found mine, and they were the ones that were like, I went to the stationery store and got the special stationery and then printed it at Kinko's so that it was like really professional. And I was like, look at that Times New Roman. Mwah. And then recently, and I just do it out of practice because it just seemed like I was always first string of getting laid off. And that's another bit of advice. Every year, update your resume, whether you're gainfully employed or not. It's not that you never know and you're not being a negative Nelly. It's that when you do get at that opportunity of when like, I have no job. I have been laid off. Industry's been decimated. There's been a huge nuclear bomb of a recession or a .com bubble has burst. You don't have to sit down and go through that stress. You have this thing that you've been working on every year. You've been keeping your references up to date. And, again, that's another bit of advice. So that's my point number 2. The references that you use on your resume, make sure that A, they know that you've put them down as a reference, and 2, that they'll give you a good review. I have had in the past people who have put references on and they're like, oh, didn't even know that they were looking for a job. whoops. Or, yeah, all I can say is that XYZ worked here. And that's all I can say, which usually means they, they've signed an agreement that said, you don't want them to actually talk about your performance at the job, which says to me that there's issues that are underlying within that. But also save your resumes, because then you get to see how far you've come along the way. So I'm sure some of the breakout rooms, I'll go ahead and share my stuff, which is always a fun thing to look at. And yeah, that's what I got. Casey, what do you think? What are your pearls of wisdom?
Well, so like Sandra said, in addition to being a designer at 4, I'm also the recruiting lead. So I get the opportunity to see a lot of portfolios and sit in on a lot of interviews. So portfolio specific, I think one of the sort of basic tips I would say is sort of embrace the white space. And I say that in the sense of a lot of times I see portfolios where like the pages are packed with content and it's almost like too hard to decipher and like really understand the project because the images are small and there's a lot of text. And so just sort of embrace the white space and allow the project to breathe on the page. So the people reviewing it can get like a really good understanding of the work. So clean and simple, easy to read, I think is a good sort of starting point. Portfolios are as much about graphics and presentation as they are about the content. So I think that's something also that's really important. So you're showing your work, but you're also showing your presentation skills. And that also comes through in the way that you talk about your work during the interview. Again, not too much text. Like as somebody who reviews a lot of portfolios, I don't have time to read every single line of the text in a portfolio. So really like clear statements, short paragraphs, quotes, things like that, that talk about the concept or the process or your contribution to the work. Large images on pages, that would be like renderings or plans, diagrams, things like that. Nothing that's blurry, pixelated, or low res, because if it's hard to see immediately, it's hard for us to understand what we're looking at. I would say it's okay to use more than one page to share your project. So don't try to cram it all onto one page. Include 3 to 5 projects, and one of them should be a group project. So you can talk about your contributions and teamwork and how you fit into that. And then I would say show a range of process, not just all pretty renderings and not just all really technical details. Show a range of sort of start to finish and set your portfolio up to tell the story of your projects, of your work. And maybe think about it in that sense. Those are my tips. Kendra? Oh, you're on mute, I think.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Forgot to put my mic down. I want to follow up on what Casey said about showing your process and how you got there. If it feels messy, that's not necessarily bad. If it shows how we want to see your bubble diagrams and your kind of weird sketches that aren't beautiful, but show what your brain, kind of your process from how you got to concept to how you got to floor plans. Because really, what a hiring manager, and Casey, tell me if I'm wrong, is looking for is how you work and how you work within a group of people and with other people, because 90% of our job in reality is collaboration. In school, you spend a lot of time working by yourself. And so I also think if you have a group project, put it in there, talk about what you did and how you worked with those people and who did what on the project, because that really tells how well you work with a group of people and with your peers.
Yeah, and I'd say coming out of school too, as someone who looks for new talent, like I don't expect you to know how to do everything. I expect you to want to learn and want to dive in and be excited about the process and excited about the opportunities. So I don't think that when you're putting your portfolio together that you need to be so concerned with showing that I know how to do it all, but more about this is my process and this is how I learn and these are the opportunities I'm looking for.
To that point, it's also important just to set your portfolio apart from other people. Like this is what's representing you. And so like I studied abroad twice. And so I included my study abroad trips as part of my portfolio. And that shows those hiring people that I have that global perspective. I learned in a studio setting, but I also learned by being out in the world. And so if you have cool, unique things that set you apart, like maybe you are an awesome studio artist, maybe you have an art minor, like also include that in your portfolio because people love to see that. And it really does tie into who you are as a designer and as a person.
On the cooking shows, I want to see you on a plate. I want to see you in a portfolio. Just be poetic about it.
So true. We often want to see what makes you you and you unique and what you love about design, because there's many ways you can be more technical, you can be more kind of early on in the SD and more theoretical. Yeah. So we want to see what you're good at and what you excel at. And if you like the research side and you really want to go into that portion of it, like great, show it off, because there's people out there that's what they're looking for. And they want to see your enthusiasm for everything.
I do want to share this one really sexy page I found of a portfolio. I had the best time last night, Peter, like going through my portfolio. But this was from the portfolio for what I showed at Ankrom Moisan. It's a really intense spreadsheet. And what it is it's a performance comparison for carpet for the GSA. And so the GSA had asked us to put together a very robust performance specification because we couldn't name manufacturers. We had to do it solely based off of what we found on the backside of the book. And and I often hear from Karen that was one of the clinchers, what set me apart from other designers, because they were showing the shiny. That's kind of what we do anyway. You know, you have your hero picture and then a couple little sides and maybe you talk concept. But she said she enjoyed seeing this bit of thoroughness. Of course, the font's like at a 2-point, you have to get your bifocals out. But she liked seeing that there's a meticulous quality to the way that I had to analyze this so that the government had a fair and blind opportunity to select the best product. So even that, it's process. It's not necessarily the most sexy of things, because I do workplace and I do tenant improvement, which isn't always the most sexy. It's carpet and paint. But the process, there's a beauty in that process, and being able to convey that on the page is beautiful. And so student work, same deal. A lot of the stuff you've done isn't very beautiful. I know that. I looked through my portfolio last night. Oh my God, I can't believe I saved some of that stuff. But it helped to remind me that I had those so that I could show process to prospective employers.
Yeah, I just want to add to this, because when I was talking with a lot of the team that was going to do this panel review, we talked a lot about storytelling and seeing students specifically in a much broader view. And I had recently just done a portfolio review with a student, and because it was virtual, I got to see some things in her background. And after she showed me about her projects, I said, what's that behind you? And she said, oh, it's just this stuff I do on the side. I really like to design clothing. And so I've done this apparel stuff. And I was like, can you tell me more about that? And she just went off on this tangent about how passionate she was and her background in it and how her family had, incorporated into that. And I was like, that's the kind of stuff that you want to hear as an employer, because you get to see holistically what a person is excited about in a little bit more detail. So if you have those projects that you're passionate about, if things like, trigger even personal things like you was saying about sharing insights as to if you've traveled abroad and that's really affected you in some way, or you're passionate about that. Those are the things that people want to hear when they're talking to you, not just about every single detail within a project.
I would also say those are the things that stand out and we remember when we're interviewing lots of candidates. Like the little things that are like, oh yeah, Anna was a German minor and that influenced her work. So and so was really into X, Y, and Z. And then that's like the little nugget that helps us remember who was who when we're looking at lots of applicants for the same position. So yeah, little characteristics or unique things about you that set you apart.
I'm looking at the chat and I see a lot of things about printed versus digital. And I would just say, like, this is something that I saw a lot of in school, because my program, we had to print our portfolios as part of kind of our final capstone event. If you're going to be printing your portfolio, think about the format and the size. Like if you make your portfolio a square sheet, you're going to be chopping all of those pages. So think about that in advance. I made mine on 8.5 by 11. And then the spreads were 11 by 17, because then I could just take it to the printer. I'm like stressed, completely like low on sleep, and I didn't have to be like cutting everything. So also just one thing that I discovered when I did print my portfolio is that UPS printed for way less than FedEx. And so I always took all of my stuff to UPS instead of FedEx, because I don't know why FedEx thinks they're so cool, but they were like, we're going to make you pay twice as much as elsewhere.
You know, and go local too.
Yes.
Portland, there's a lot of great print shops. I'm almost positive where your universities are, there are print shops, because education, though digital in some respects, is still very print heavy. And so your local companies too will cut you a deal, I'm sure, with a student discount.
I would say,
you know, tactile. Remember, it doesn't have to be just that, 50-pound bond. You can work it, mix it up a little.
I would say also plan to have it in a digital format though, especially with the current situation where we're all working from home. We're doing a lot of interviews online through this Zoom platform. So have it in both formats.
Yeah, Casey, on that question, do you are you interviewing mostly and reviewing portfolios virtually with people that are coming in?
Yeah. So at Bora, we ask people to submit their portfolio, resume, and cover letter through our careers email, and then we review it digitally on our side. And then when we actually do the first interview, we go through the portfolio with the candidate and ask them to talk about their work, and they're sharing their screen through Zoom and clicking through the pages and talking to it.
Yeah, and that reminds me, Casey, when you see job postings and you're responding to said job postings, a lot of times the initial screenings of those resumes are through third parties. And what they'll do is they scrub those resumes for keywords. So are you responding specific to those job postings? So make sure you're answering the question direct. You're kind of at an advantage because as students, you're in the process of learning how to learn and respond to questions appropriately. So you're probably much better at answering the question than, say, myself, where I am forever in project whiplash mode, where I'm just like, I'm over here and I'm this, I got this. So again, when you see they're advertising for a junior designer with X amount of years and these bullet points of experiences, I know Revit, I know AutoCAD, make sure your resume has those keywords in it, because it means that you're answering the question specifically. And it also means that you're paying attention.
Yeah, if people are asking for very specific skills or software, make sure you put that in your resume. That's one of the things right off the bat that I scan down the line just to see, do they have the basic bullet points, like Roberta said, that we listed for. That doesn't mean that if you don't know how to use Revit, that doesn't mean that we're not going to still review your portfolio and ask you to interview if we think your work is in line with what we're looking for. But that is sort of like an initial indicator, is sort of to scan the resume for those bullet points. That's good advice.
Yeah, I'll add to that in that every time I ever applied for a job, I always felt underqualified. And I don't know if that's just me personally or, you know, in general, they're looking for a candidate with some ideal criteria. And there's no perfect person that's going to hit every single target in that. So they're looking for what's the closest fit and then who is excited to learn and take things on and do something new and different. I think in design, the coolest part of this job is that it's always changing, it's always evolving, and you kind of have to have a growth mindset in any type of role that you go into, that you're willing to take some new things on and test it out and wear different hats. So I would just say, don't be afraid if it asks for a certain level of experience or a certain type of program that you've never done before. Don't immediately disqualify you. When I was going for jobs, I was always going for jobs with experience well beyond what I had. And I landed them because I was excited and I was willing to jump in and do things. Even if I didn't have 6 years experience, I had 3 years of experience, because you have no idea who else you're going up against. And again, you know, you as a person could sell what you're doing and what you're excited to do over maybe someone that's done it for a million years and is just going to keep on doing it a certain way. So don't automatically disqualify if you're not like 100% of that job description.
And nerves. So I also know from my experience as well, nerves. I always thought I was nervous and I had a fear of public speaking or a fear of presenting myself. And I had this fantastic speech teacher, and English was a second language. So for her to be stoked about doing public speaking to an English speaking college student atmosphere, I would have been terrified. But she told me I'm not nervous. And she would say to me and then of herself that it's not nerves. It's not a fear of public speaking. It's that you are so excited about presenting the knowledge that you have that you're getting tripped up. It's like how a dog gets so excited about dinner time and you're like, oh my God, and they like do flips and like go all crazy all over the place. And then they forget like, wait, oh yeah, dinner. Use that energy and know that it is the excitement that you have to tell your story to others. Channel the energy into that presentation of yourself.
I think it's important to remember too that like it's a partnership between you and the company that you're working for, and it has to be a good fit for both parties. Otherwise, it's not going to be a long-term success. So like, as you can look great on paper, but if you aren't able to like have a comfortable conversation with somebody, like it's a balance. And it can be opposite too. Like maybe you don't look great on paper, but you have really great personal skills and you're able to carry a conversation, and like it just feels like a natural fit. So I think that's important for people to remember too. Like maybe not every interview is going to feel great, but that also might just mean that it's not the right place for you to succeed long term. So it's important to know what you want and know that it's a partnership and that it's not all the firm's decision, I guess maybe is the best way to say that.
You're interviewing each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I want to just do a quick time check. So we've got about 10 minutes more. So I want to make sure students, like, this is your chance. Ask some questions, you know, get some advice. This is, you know, what do you want to know from 4 different individuals that are reviewing portfolios? You know, what are they seeing that's good? What's bad? What should you not put in your portfolio? Maybe that's another question someone could ask.
I'll throw out, don't put in your original works. Get a digital copy, because you don't know if like on your way there's a rainstorm and I had this happen, a cat will jump across your drawings and her claws totally trashed my drawings. So just make sure there's a digital backup. Yeah, digital backups are good. Don't bring your original works. I'd hate to mess it up with my coffee because I am a total klutz with drinks.
I mentioned it in my like sort of tips, but just make sure you do a test print of your portfolio, either digitally in a PDF format or physically on paper, to make sure that everything is really clear and crisp and legible before you send it out.
Could you talk about length maybe a little bit? That's always a big question. You know, is it magazine format? Is it 80 pages? Is it 20 pages? Do I do show 2 projects? Like maybe what's a good cadence of like project types and length?
I see portfolios in all different formats. Sometimes they're just PDFs. Sometimes I see a lot on Issue. That seems to be a popular one right now. And I feel like there might be one more format that's sort of similar to Issue. I can't remember what it's called.
The Squarespace?
Maybe. I almost want to say it's like
Wix. I know
Vimeo.
Wix can do them too, website hosting.
Yeah, they're basically very similar, but like the magazine format.
What did you use, Eve?
I used Issue. That's where I posted my stuff. And then it's nice because then you can like put it on your LinkedIn, or you could link people to where you've hosted your stuff.
Okay.
I've also seen some real overachievers that have their own like websites, like their, you know, domain with their name. I would say for length, 3 to 5 projects is about right. Like I said before, at least one should be a group project that you can speak to teamwork and how you collaborate.
And tailor to where you're working or where you're applying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good too. Yeah, tailor your experience towards what that firm works on.
So don't put every project in. If you're going for a commercial firm and you have a bunch of residential projects, maybe one if something about it is in particular important, but otherwise I'd say knock it out, find something else that's relevant.
I see a hand. Ashton, did you have a question? And then Cindy.
Yeah, I just have a question in regards to like the interviewing process.
And then Becca.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ashton.
What are you guys looking for when you're interviewing somebody? Like what's something that stands out when you're talking to somebody, or just more like that communication in that area?
Someone who's present. I mean, that you're listening to the questions, listening to the conversation, and not trying to think ahead of it. That kind of jives with it. I've been in those kind of conversations where they're trying so hard to get it all out about why they're awesome. They forget that we're in the room too, and we're, you know, it's a dialogue, it's an exchange, it's sort of a first date, it's a speed dating situation where, you know, we just want to make sure that there's the personality there, that it's a right fit for the culture. That's a big one that you'll hear a lot. That's usually it. I mean, you know, you show up, make sure you shower, don't have a cigarette beforehand, and if you don't smell like a bowling alley, you already got 5 points in my book.
And dress for it, right? Like, you know, we do live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Seattle, so we're real cash out here, but that doesn't mean it's not the time to kind of pull out your suit jacket maybe and a nicer blouse. And see, exactly. I mean, I've got a nice sweater on today. I mean, you could do that where, like I said, Pacific Northwest, this isn't the East Coast where, you know, you kind of got to step it up a little bit. So, but just think about how you want to present yourself to them. And, you know, we are designers, and there is that thought of, it does kind of carry on to our clothes. So you kind of, there's the designer black and the designer kind of colorful. So think about that kind of how you present yourself too in that way.
Yeah.
But also, sorry, I'm just gonna like pivot off of that. But also like wear something that is comfortable for you, and don't feel like you have to create this whole persona just to interview. Like, if you have a favorite sweater that's all snazzy, like wear that. Whatever makes you comfortable and confident, like that's what is then gonna relay in your interview.
I was gonna ask if Kendra, Eve, or Casey, in your student days, if you had to, like, if your instructors told you to wear, like, mine were a bit old fashioned. They're like, wear pantyhose and your best shoes. And I was like, are you kidding me? Because like, Eve, you just said it. How uncomfortable is that? Ugh.
Power suits are not required.
No power suits.
Probably maybe frowned upon even.
Yeah,
it'd be out of place in certain places.
Industry, like show your creativity and who you are.
Yeah, like if you're going, maybe if you're going broker land, or project management for a more corporate position that would be appropriate. And that would be like for picture day.
Shoes are always a great way to express your personality. Some fun, colorful shoes and keep it neutral. I mean, just find different ways. Earrings, there's different ways that you can show your personality. I want to make sure we have time for the other two just before we break. So Cindy, you had a question, and we'll go to Becca.
Well, now I have another question since we
okay, keep it really short. Yeah.
I had been in the workforce longer as well, and was always kind of told like dress really conservative, wear like grays and browns, but this is like a creative position and I'm kind of a colorful liking person. Like, is that acceptable to wear to an interview?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like my favorite suit jacket is pink and it's long and it has pockets. And anytime I want to feel like I'm in my power, yes, I'm in my power suit. I will 100%, like for me, that's the power suit. It's the pink coat because it looks really cute. And then a comfy blouse, it's usually black because black goes with everything, right? And a pair of dark jeans and boots, right? Like that for me is where I feel like I'm here to get this job or get this client.
Awesome.
So I think it's about finding something that feels professional, but also speaks to who you are and who you are as a human. And I love color and pattern. So I definitely have a couple of shirts I love to wear because there's one with umbrellas and raining and living in Seattle. I think it's hilarious to wear it on a sunny day because it's the opposite, right? So just find who you are, but still have that sense, I think, of showing up that you are prepared and a prepared human, right? It's a balance.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I gotta say, I'm not a fashion plate. I did not know how to dress for my own body until 10 years ago. So, we had something in my early firm, we called it the uniform, where it was like a button-up shirt, slacks that fit okay, and loafers. And that works too. I mean, you're on a budget. Sometimes you just can't, if you're not a bins person or you don't know how to alter your own clothes, it's okay to adopt a uniform early on and then slowly start to incorporate more professional things based on what you observe in the office.
Gotcha.
I think it goes back to that idea of partnership too, right? Like if you can't be yourself and feel comfortable in the things that you feel like really represent you, then maybe that's not the right place for you to end up long term, because you want to be able to express yourself and be your best self every day that you're working in that job. So yeah, I think it's really important to feel like you can share yourself more than just your technical abilities in your work.
Gotcha.
Amen to that.
Becca, we'll turn to you for a last quick question here.
This is super quick and not necessarily a general question, but more for right now portfolio review that we're doing. I know you said to only show 1 or 2 projects, and so I just have my whole portfolio and I'll pick through, but I wanted to know, for the sake of feedback, should I be showing the projects that I like the most, like my 2 favorites, or my 2 weakest projects that I would want more feedback on?
I'll punt that to the reviewers. What do you think is
I
good?
think
I guess
could go either way.
Yeah.
I think you could take it in 2 directions. If you wanted to share the projects that you feel like need the most feedback, and that's what your goal is for this session, then let's talk about it and have an open and honest conversation. If you want to work on your presentation skills and and how you present the work that you're most proud of and how you want to share it, let's dive into the stuff that you feel really confident about and talk about the interview more than maybe the content. So your choice.
Awesome. Well, we're going to move to our session. So we have, want to make sure I've got these folks on the call here. I've got Erica as a portfolio, or a Beeler, I think is how you say her last name, Ashton Chipman, Kendall Wire, Charity Wardle, sorry, I'm butchering these names, and Becca Weigel and Sana Komalie. I think those are all the students that are on the call that I could see that have their portfolios being reviewed. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break into sessions. So Kendra will be leading a session, Roberta will be leading a session, as well as Eve and Casey. And so those students will be like I said in the email, like we just talked about, presenting, 1 to 2 projects, whether your favorite or what you want the most feedback on, but really kind of keeping it short and sweet so that you have time for that feedback and discussion. And the intent is that for those sessions where we have 2 students, which is most of them that are getting reviewed, you'll have 20 minutes each as a student. So that's really on you. If you take the first 5 minutes and you've got 15 minutes for discussion, it's kind of, we'll let you drive in the seat as a presenter, and then the reviewers will take that time to review and give some feedback. And then everyone else, we're going to encourage you, I've put you all into the breakout rooms alongside those students, so we encourage you to listen in. It's also good practice for those presenting their portfolios, because in a room you probably won't be, you'll be presenting likely to a panel or to potentially a few people. So no pressure, it's very low stakes. These are all, you can see, super friendly people and here to support you, but we'd encourage you to join that breakout session that I've assigned you to, and I've kind of mixed you up based on school and experience level, and so you can listen in and get some good feedback for your portfolio. And then we will come back together as a group at about 12:25, 12:26, because we have a couple things to wrap up, some awesome raffle prizes, and we'll just send you all on your way. So I'm going to stop the recording now, open the rooms, and send everyone to the room. Myself and potentially Sandra will maybe stick around in the general session if you have questions or need help with anything, or just don't feel comfortable going to the portfolio review, but you want to stay on, you're welcome to stay in the main room. So we'll see how this works. I hope it does. I'm opening all the rooms. I think I just broadcasted it. Wait, so let's see. Yeah, I see folks dropping off. So join in your room and we'll see you all back at 12:25.